Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Chen Ming watched the Zerg fleet fight to the death until it was completely destroyed. Watching the mechanical cruisers and lower-level spacecraft follow in the Zerg fleet's final struggle. Then he ended his observation there. But what Chen Ming didn't see was that after he finished his observation, a small wave of new jump fluctuations appeared in the galaxy. An unobservable creature came here through jumps and made a chirping sound that could not be heard. And the mechanical motherships that were originally planning to scan the planet that had begun to disintegrate and the surrounding cosmic environment to see if there were any living Zerg individuals immediately jumped away as quickly as if they were avoiding the plague god. Chen Ming's consciousness returned to the main body. After reviewing the battle just now, he suddenly sighed. He really had never fought such a luxurious battle. And in fact, after destroying the lower-level fleet of the mechanical race, the tens of thousands of Zerg cruisers that were not destroyed could be tried to retreat. There is no chance of winning if they continue to stay and forcibly fight against the three motherships of the mechanical race, and they can't even cause damage. It's not that Chen Ming doesn't want to save money. After all, it takes dozens of minutes to build tens of thousands of Zerg cruisers. But in the situation just now, the Zerg fleet can only retreat through jumps, and jumps may lead to the discovery of the Zerg nest planet. Jumping to other places can only delay the time of death. So the best ending for these Zergs is to fight to the end. Anyway, they can produce more later. Then this raid will end when the last Zerg cruiser is destroyed. Chen Ming did not immediately pay too much attention to the mechanical motherships marked with Zerg blood or biological tissues, but paid attention to the facility he had just sent away. It's just that the mechanical psychic biological transformation facility is completely placed in the building and integrated with the building. So it didn't send the facility directly to the spaceship next to his body just now. He had to deal with the facilities a little bit first, then free up the original 1/3 of the facilities, and then install the complete, brand new facilities. Of course, Chen Ming didn't need to do this. Chao Fan, who was involved in more and more research recently, would help him finish the work. While the facilities were still being installed, Chen Ming considered a new thing. That is, the dispatch of such a large-scale Zerg fleet would inevitably be discovered by the Empire and could not be hidden at all. The front line must have sent a reconnaissance fleet that he didn't know about to wander around nearby, and it would definitely see the appearance of the Zerg fleet. Even if such a large-scale jump trace was not seen, it would be impossible to cover it up. Through the jump traces and the wreckage left over from the battle, you only need to check a little to find the information contained in these wreckage. As long as you have this information, you will find that there is definitely a causal relationship between the appearance of the Zerg and Chen Ming. It may not be that Chen Ming and the Zerg are closely related, but there is definitely a connection. So he has to consider the follow-up of this matter. What should he do? Although after the Queen of Zerg completed this evolution, Chen Ming felt that he really didn't need to continue to hide his power too much. The Queen of Zerg's power is also part of his power. His power in secret is even more than his power in public. But Chen Ming felt that it was not good. His psychic power was enough to make the Empire wary, and now there is another Zerg. Then someone really doubted what he was. So Chen Ming's idea was to direct the spearhead to Manhwa. The prosthesis is used for this. He can deny it at that time. After all, in everyone's eyes, he is in the headquarters and will return to the front line with Bai Quan at any time. How can he control the Zerg? Believe it or not, it's up to them. Believe it or not, he is there. It's just that Manhwa is more suspicious. And Chen Ming had already thought about Manhwa's identity and background before and revealed part of it to the Empire. It's enough to divert the conflict. As long as he does something else. Chen Ming took out the terminal and called Bai Quan. Bai Quan's voice rang out. There are still 5 days before we go to the front line. I will tell you in advance. Chen Ming responded. I just asked yesterday. How could I ask again today? Oh, what's the matter? I found some interesting things here, and I feel that I need to hold another urgent meeting. Another meeting? It's okay if you don't hold it, then I'll tell you directly. Then you say, let me make it clear first. This matter is very important and involves the front line. Chen Ming repeated what he had just thought of in his mind again, and said, there are 3 things in total. The first thing is that my fleet discovered a planet, and the planet is full of bugs. Bai Quan immediately asked, "A planet full of bugs? What kind of bugs are there?" "The thorn zerg." Bai Quan was not surprised by this result. The universe is so big, and there are planets full of bug-like creatures, but the only bugs that Chen Ming can think about are the thorn zerg. Chen Ming also sent a photo. This photo was taken from space when the insect queen had not yet completed its evolution and had not transformed a large number of insect nests into Zerg cruisers. At this time, the insect nest planet was still complete, and the entire planet was covered in gray-green biomass. When Bai Quan saw the photo at first glance, he didn't realize what was going on. He thought the planet itself was gray-green. After zooming in to high precision, I discovered that the planet was covered with a layer of gray-green. The gray-green substance that can cover the entire planet should be derivatives of the thorn zerg. Bai Quan also realized the problem and confirmed. So many. Yes, insect nests are spread all over the planet. This planet can be said to be finished. Where are the coordinates? Chen Ming sent the coordinates again, and it was not that far away from the Empire. This location, so close. Bai Quan didn't say it clearly, but the meaning was already in place on Chen Ming's side. He responded, "Do you believe me when I say I didn't notice it before? I just believe it, but when others ask, they definitely don't believe it. Then wait until other people come to ask me. I feel like no one should dare to ask me face to face." 2. Bai Quan did not delve into why Chen Ming had discovered this insect nest planet long ago, but never mentioned it at any time, but he just mentioned it at this time. He also did not explore when this planet was completely covered by the Zerg. Anyway, Chen Ming will definitely tell him what needs to be said. He is now more concerned about the remaining two things Chen Ming just said. What about the second thing? Chen Ming replied, "The second thing is that the mechanical tribe is hunting me down. They seem to regard me as their main target recently. They have divided up a bunch of fleets and demolished the strongholds I left in many places to mine resources." "Oh, that's why you were so concerned about the battle situation on the front line before. Just because you wanted to see what the machine race was doing, right? But they didn't resist on the front line and turned around to look for you, right?" Chen Ming nodded. "The machine tribe would rather find me than the front line, but it gives me a headache. The loss of a bunch of strongholds on my side has caused me to buy a lot of supplies from the Empire. Let me help you find the source of goods again." "Okay, no problem. What about one more thing?" "This is interesting," Chen Ming said. "In order to find those strongholds of mine, the machine race has formed a large fleet. The total number of expulsions and escorts is about hundreds of thousands, scattered over an area of more than 1,000 light years. The machine tribe provoked the Zerg tribe, right? What happens next?" Bai Quan had already guessed what Chen Ming was going to say from the first two things Chen Ming said. Ever since Whooping joined the Auden Star territory some time ago, news about the new changes in the Thorn Zerg and their possession of biological battleships has spread. Of course, Bai Quan also heard the news. So he guessed that there should be a conflict between the machine race and the Zerg race. Chen Ming didn't hide it and sent a few photos over. Then, of course, the insects came out in force and started fighting with the mechanical tribe in that area. I observed that a huge battle broke out in this large area. The Thorn Zerg seemed to have the means to track down the machine race. They have found almost all the machine race that are causing trouble, and they will kill the machine race regardless of losses. Look at the data I have here. The transition wave is almost covering such a large area. The scene is really. Chen Ming paused and showed Bai Quan the information he sent and the time it took to digest it. Bai Quan said while watching, "I remember that in our research on the machine tribe, there seems to be a record of the machine tribe not being able to deal with the Thorn Zerg tribe, and it is normal for them to fight. What Chen Ming wants is for everyone to think like Bai Quan does now." He then gave Bai Quan a few more photos and continued. Later, the machine tribe seemed to have lured the Zerg to their border and used their battleships to kill the Zerg fleet, but the machine tribe also seemed to have destroyed a planet. The photos Chen Ming gave Bai Quan were all taken from a very far distance. It can be seen that the three motherships of the mechanical race are orbiting a collapsed planet, and the inside and outside of the orbit are full of ruins and wreckage. At a glance, there were countless shipwrecks, which was enough to show the scale and cruelty of this battle. This scale, Bai Chuan's mind quickly constructed a picture of the two sides' battle lines lining up before the battle broke out. It was hard for him to imagine how he got hit to such an extent. Chen Ming didn't give Bai Quan long time to think and sent another photo to Bai Quan and said, "Take another look at this." This photo sent by Chen Ming also shows a gray-green planet, but its appearance is obviously different from the one just now. Not only is it much smaller in size, but it can also see obvious terrain undulations from space. This is what the hive planet looks like now. The parts that disappeared have all turned into biological warships of the Zerg race. They fight to the death with the mechanical race. I estimate that there should be a fleet nearby on the front line, and they should be able to observe it. There may be information back in 2 days, but my side is very efficient, so I'll let you know first. I'm worried about what those bugs might do next, so I need to alert the front line. This information can be shared, no problem. Okay, I get it. Bai Quan already understood what Chen Ming meant. The Thorn Zerg tribe has suffered losses of this magnitude, and the Machine tribe's losses will also be at least of this magnitude. Since the Mechanical clan has suffered such losses, the pressure on the front line will definitely be further reduced, and they can be more open to attack, causing losses to the Mechanical clan. The more losses the Machine tribe suffered, the happier Chen Ming was, who had suffered losses from the Machine tribe. Although Chen Ming may have other ideas, Bai Quan can guarantee that Chen Ming's ideas definitely contain what he thinks. Bai Quan understood what Chen Ming meant. I also sorted out the documents and sent them to the front line and sent them over. However, he was not in a hurry to end the conversation, but instead talked about another topic. The Legion has recently begun to draw up military honors for you. Chen Ming asked, "Military merit? What military merit? Did Xiao Bowen promise before?" "No, he will find another opportunity for you later. What I am saying is that the Legion is drawing up military honors for you. As for the two previous things, you obtained the detailed star map and defense map of the mechanical race star domain, and you discovered the two things related to the dimensional infection and the scarlet dimension." "Oh." Chen Ming knew. "But I can understand the first one, but the second one," Bai Quan explained. "After all, it is a major discovery. As long as phase technology can be developed, it can suppress dimensional infection, speed up the treatment of dimensional infection, and protect the entire empire. The Legion will also benefit. Of course, you will be rewarded internally." Just like the first person who discovered phase space did not continue to conduct in-depth research on the phase technology project, his contribution was there, and the organization he belonged to would definitely give him an internal reward. Legion, it's the same this time. At that time, the Legion may also use you as an example to promote it. There are rewards, but I may not be available for publicity. Bai Quan continued to explain, "Just take a couple of photos and do an interview. It won't take long." "That's okay. When will the contribution points arrive?" "It's still early. It took more than a month last time, and it will definitely take longer this time. Moreover, the contribution points are only the basis. There will be other rewards. You might as well care about this." "More? What specifically?" "The department responsible for this is also having a headache right now. I don't know what they will do to you in the end. There's a high probability that it's not about military rank, it's about material or other aspects. You are now a senior colonel. If you were to go up above, you would not be promoted to the general level. You have spent too little time in the Legion." Chen Ming has no objection. He doesn't value military rank, and he doesn't need military rank to prove anything now. Anyway, at least now, not just any general can be on an equal footing with him. Then it's best to give me something useful. I'll keep an eye on it for you. After Bai Quan finished saying what he wanted to say, Chen Ming was also in no hurry to hang up the phone. He still had something to ask about the war between the mechanical tribes. The war between the mechanical tribes started much earlier than he originally expected, which resulted in him not having completely completed all the military command courses. It can only be said that we have a partial understanding of the specific circumstances, situation, and final victory of the war, but it is not complete. He needed to ask more precisely. However, Bai Quan said that the situation will be known when we get to the front line, and there is no point in knowing it now, because these are changing at any time. As for how to win, Bai Quan said in detail, "The ultimate goal of this war between the Machine clan is to seize the star territory of the Machine clan, obtain war dividends, and suppress various problems in the Empire that have been stagnant for a long time due to the sequelae of dimensional infection. The purpose of the war from the beginning was to capture the star territory. To seize the star territory, we must eliminate the influence of the mechanical tribe in this star territory, destroy the core galaxy of the mechanical tribe in the mechanical tribe star territory, eliminate all arsenals, dismantle all motherships, and cut them off. Communication network and drive them out completely. The main thing is to find ways to occupy or destroy the core galaxies of the mechanical race. Core galaxies can be subdivided into different types. For example, the important logistics nodes of the mechanical race, the galaxies with star gates, those large industrial planets, and the military galaxies, there are quite a lot of targets. Originally, we should have slowly investigated these galaxies when attacking the mechanical race, but with your information, we saved a lot of trouble. There are a total of 137 galaxies that can be counted as core galaxies, and a total of 302 core planets. Currently, 6 core galaxies and 7 core planets have been occupied. These are all achievements on the border during this period. If 70% of these core galaxies and planets are eliminated, the mechanical race will be completely finished. Chen Ming asked, "Is there the most important galaxy?" Have. Bai Quan directly reported the coordinates of the 3 galaxies and said, "These 3 galaxies are the most important galaxies of the mechanical race. 2 have the only giant shipyards of the mechanical clan in this star field, and 1 has the psychic signal generator of the mechanical clan." Psychic signal generator? What is that? Isn't this also an existence discovered from a project you proposed before? Chen Ming asked with some confusion. Did I propose it? Yes, you were the first to say that the machine tribe is a hive mind network created using psychic means, and then prove that the machine tribe is indeed a hive mind built using psychic energy. There will be specialized researchers to study this project later by cutting off the psychic signals of the machine tribe individuals at different locations, and then determining the location of the machine tribe's psychic signal generator based on the signal's speed and delay difference. If you remove it, the machine race's hive mind network will most likely be directly disconnected. Such a thing actually exists. You didn't expect that, right? But looking at the defense map you posted before, the machine tribe has indeed set up heavy troops there. It can basically prove this. Even if the defense is changed, the defense there will only be more, not less. If there are other important galaxies. Bai Quan once again spoke out the coordinates of the 7 galaxies fluently. These 7 galaxies are all galaxies with star gates. They divide the mechanical race's star field into 7 star regions. I don't need to explain the value of killing the star gates. In total, these 10 galaxies are the most important. Even if the others are not solved, directly solving these 10 will basically solve the mechanical star field. As long as we can kill these 10 galaxies, our capital ships can just run over them when the time comes. The rest will be garbage time. However, it is a pity that this cannot be done under normal circumstances. Hade will start from the border between us and the machinery race and gradually reduce the combat effectiveness of the machinery race. Only by attacking step by step can we dismantle those important star systems. Understood. Chen Ming carefully recorded all the coordinates and key points for winning the war, and then asked, "Isn't there anything else important? Where are the new weapons of the machinery clan?" Bai Quan said, "You don't have to worry too much about the destroyer and other psychic weapons you mentioned last time. There will be solutions to them. I am mainly worried about the Empire's attitude towards psychers. Without psychers, it will be difficult to compete with the machine race. Everyone knows this, but I have said before that the Empire's attitude towards psychers is changing, and this time the situation will be different." Bai Quan also knew that Chen Ming, as a psycher, could feel that the Empire's previous attitude towards psychers was that of letting them go. As long as they didn't cause trouble, it could be said to be a basically indifferent attitude. As a result, when faced with a battlefield situation that required the use of psychers, the Empire needed psychers again. This contrast in attitudes before and after caused a headache for everyone. Not to mention that from Chen Ming's perspective, it is not certain whether the Empire will really value psychers. So Bai Quan comforted him and said, "Don't worry. In this war, psychics will definitely play a prominent role, and they will definitely be treated as they deserve." So sure. Yes, I was asked to have a special talk 2 days ago. It is certain that the Empire's attitude towards psychers is definitely very positive. In places you don't know, many psychers have been symptomatic, and each psycher with a unique ability has been assigned a team tailored to the psycher's abilities. Let me start by saying that there is absolutely nothing mandatory about this sign. Then you have to know that not only the front line, but also the logistics and enemy lines have places where people need to do things. All psychers are individually assigned tasks that best suit them to perform. Chen Ming asked in confusion. All? Most suitable? How many resources will this cost? This is the Empire's decision. All records will be recorded, and most records will find ways to highlight the contributions of those psychics. Wait, highlighting the contributions of psychers? Are you sure? Sure. Bai Quan nodded and said, because the Empire wants to bring psychers to the table. The Empire will announce the existence of psychers in this war. Are you announcing the psychics right now? Bai Quan responded to Chun Ming's question. You can't say right now. The propaganda has been prepared long ago. Not only will the contributions of psychics be highlighted, the Empire will also highlight the contributions of ordinary people who have made outstanding contributions in the war. Put ordinary people and psychics together for publicity, and treat psychics as ordinary people with special abilities, just like those officers with excellent command abilities. They are all ordinary people, but with different abilities. This is the plan that the Empire has been planning for the past few decades. Psychics have existed for a long time. In the beginning, the news was sealed tightly, but later the control of psychic news was gradually relaxed. Some news about psychics was even leaked by the Empire, making psychics gradually become an urban legend, and letting the people of the Empire gradually adapt to the existence of psychics in a subtle way. The psychics themselves are very powerful. The abilities of psychics are too beyond the cognition of ordinary people, and things beyond cognition will bring fear to people. Through subtle influence, people will gradually lose their fear of psychics, and then find a suitable time to announce the existence of psychics. This is the complete plan. The suitable time is now. This must-win war between us and the mechanical race. You will also be used as a special propaganda example and will be released with me. Including what you and I will do in this war, the last time I cooperated with you to attack Yuhui's giant dock, will be promoted together. The Empire also wants to create more heroes to further divert the attention of the people in the country. Minimize the impact of dimensional infection. Chen Ming listened carefully to Bai Quan's words, and the thousands of words he wanted to say could only be summed up in one sentence. Good guy. It can be said that psychics have always been a troublesome group. This arrangement of the Empire can be said to have completely integrated the concept of psychics into the people and into the concept of the Empire itself. The Empire can even have a legitimate reason to look for those psychics hidden among the civilians, or those who have psychic talents. No longer need to do it secretly, no longer need to avoid the negative effects caused by the influence of psychics. Although such operations seem to be shaping heroes, the key is not heroes, but characters. This will strip away the divinity possessed by psychics, who have supernatural powers. Psychics are human beings. This matter has both good and bad sides. But for Chen Ming, it should be generally good. So he has no objection. Bai Quan continued. By the way, there may be some gossip about you. That is, the news about you and Shanghai. The Empire will leak some of your daily life through some low-level channels, so that more people know that psychics are just ordinary people. Not just you. There are many psychics whose daily lives will be spread in a secret way when the propaganda department thinks it is appropriate. Further reduce the public's vigilance and fear of psychics. Of course, if you mind, I can mention it to the propaganda department. If you don't release it, the effect may not be very good, because only you are the most outstanding psychic who can be promoted now. Chen Ming thought about it and said, as long as it is not too private, I don't care. Anyway, I don't show up in public. What is Shanghai's opinion? I asked her, and she has no objection. Okay, then just show it to me before the news leaks out. No problem. The communication ended. Chen Ming immediately anticipated what would happen next. The news would first be spread through Bai Chuan's mouth. The Empire will certainly invest some resources to investigate, and in the end, it will definitely find in Whooping who is absolutely related to the Thorn Zerg. As long as Chen Ming does a good job with Enwhooping, the Zerg will only be connected to Enwhooping and cut off from Chen Ming himself. Of course, if the Empire really finds some additional information that makes him related to the Zerg again, he also has backup means to explain and separate the relationship. Chen Ming put away the terminal. He focused his attention on the mechanical psychic biological transformation facility that was just installed after the call with Bai Quan ended. Next, it is time to start the experimental process that was not completed last time due to the damaged equipment. Speaking of experiments, Chen Ming subconsciously glanced at Sample Zero, who has been on the spacecraft recently. This guy is the first Zerg individual to undergo transformation, and he is also the only individual who survived Chen Ming's many transformation experiments in the past few days. Compared with the previous few days, its condition is much better. It is no longer constantly causing harm to itself because of the mechanized structure in its body. Survival crisis is no longer a possible reason for the death of Sample Zero. It was still only a disabled individual, but it did not give up struggling. The natural adaptability and evolutionary ability of the Zerg allow it to continuously evolve in the process of fighting against itself and constantly adapt to its body that is a random mixture of machinery and biology. At least now, compared with when it just crawled out of the transformation facility, it can already carry out some simple activities, unlike before when it could only crawl. This can also be said that the Zerg individual controlling Sample Number Zero has a strong consciousness and a strong desire to survive. Therefore, after being sent into the body of Sample Number Zero, there will be changes that other individuals do not have. So Chen Ming has been raising Sample Number Zero, and it will not consume any more resources. Maybe it will bring him some unexpected surprises later. After reading Sample Number Zero, Chen Ming still focused his attention on the complete transformation facility in front of him at the moment. Use the complete facility for the first time. This time, Chen Ming did not plan to transform the Zerg first, but chose to transform one of his prostheses. After all, the situation when he transformed his prosthesis before was much worse than that of the Zerg. Not only was the average survival time shorter than that of the transformed Zerg individuals, but there was not even an individual that survived for more than an hour. So this time, he had to start with a human like the prosthesis. After sending the prosthesis in, Chen Ming began to wait patiently. The transformation process was exactly the same as before, that is, using nanorobots to transform biological tissues into machines bit by bit. Chen Ming could see the entire process. As before, the transformation started from the organs in the body. All organs for survival were removed, and only the basic organs that maintained the human body's ability to move were retained after being transformed into machines. And some cavities in the body were not retained during the transformation. This made the entire prosthesis look extremely thin when it was halfway transformed, more like a mechanized skeleton than a mechanized person. The human body was simply transformed into a mechanical individual similar to a human form, which seemed to be able to be modified with various devices at any time, and there was nothing special about the rest. But this is not over yet. After the transformation of most organs and body was completed, the transformation facility finally reached the last step, which was the brain part that Chen Ming guessed last time. Some unexpected situations occurred when the facility was transforming the brain. Of course, it was not a real accident, but there were unexpected situations in the transformation facility that exceeded Chen Ming's expectations. The prosthetic, mechanized head was suddenly opened during the transformation process, and the brain, which was still in a good biological state, was extracted separately by the nanorobots. Those nanorobots gathered on the brain, penetrated into the brain, and gradually transformed the brain into something Chen Ming had seen before. A thing called the secondary core of personality that he had found on the Purgatory Demon King. The secondary core of personality is different from the personality core of the Mechanical Queen. Its appearance is not the sphere of the personality core with several extended columnar structures. Instead, it has more various dense line arrangements while barely maintaining the basic appearance of the brain. So it is mainly a type of secondary core and has nothing to do with the personality core. Secondary cores have different levels and are installed in mechanical units of different levels. The highest level is the personality secondary core. Chen Ming actually thought the shape was a bit strange before, but he didn't think much about it at the time. Not only because he didn't really connect the personality secondary core with the brain, but also because he couldn't produce secondary personality cores at that time and now. All the information about the secondary cores of the mechanical race that he obtained from the mechanical race. There are only manufacturing plans for secondary cores from basic secondary cores to advanced secondary cores. And advanced secondary cores can just be installed in combat units, such as centipedes, which are the mainstay of the mechanical race, and there are no higher level ones. Of course, the mechanical queen should know the manufacturing plan for the personality secondary core, but Chen Ming didn't ask. Because he didn't have many purgatory cores on hand, and the Zerg was more suitable than the mechanical race in ground combat. He didn't have the idea of manufacturing advanced ground units of the mechanical race. Even if he got a higher level secondary core, there would be nowhere to use it. So he didn't study it, and he didn't rush to ask the mechanical queen. After all, the machine is there, just ask when you need it. If you ask when you don't need it, you may end up with a bunch of information that you don't need for the time being, but you still have to spend time to sort out. Therefore, Chen Ming never thought that the manufacturing process of the secondary core of personality is actually related to humans. It is even quite directly transformed through the human brain. He was wondering why the highest level secondary core would be the secondary core of personality, and now he has got a partial explanation. This also further proves that the extinct existence of the Shining Civilization is definitely closely related to humans. There is another point worth noting. That is, this secondary core of personality is damaged, a broken secondary core of personality. It is not running. Obviously, this device is a complete device that Chen Ming has just obtained, and it has even been repaired, and there is no trace of the destruction of psychic fluctuations. Logically, there should be no problem of transforming a damaged device. But a damaged secondary core of personality was produced. Why is this? Just when Chen Ming was thinking, the queen worm suddenly sent a message that made him understand what was going on. That is, when the transformation facility was transformed into the brain. The queen worm's consciousness on the prosthesis felt like it was being pulled out. The queen worm did not allow the consciousness to be pulled out, and because of the transformation process, the consciousness automatically detached, and then it became like this. Then Chen Ming understood. It should be that during the transformation, part of the brain's consciousness would be saved by the nanorobots, and after the brain was completely transformed into the secondary core of the personality, the saved consciousness would be stuffed in. The consciousness on the prosthesis was temporarily filled in by the queen worm, and there was no consciousness that could be separated separately, which led to this situation. Chen Ming immediately conducted a replica experiment again to verify his conjecture. And this time, the prosthesis was filled with the consciousness of an ordinary Zerg unit. This Zerg individual said that it had no objection. And during the transformation process of the equipment again, the prosthesis was transformed into a mechanical state, and the Zerg individual consciousness inside the prosthesis was also completely transformed into the consciousness inside the personality core. This time the secondary core was not damaged, and it began to operate normally. The consciousness inside the prosthesis still exists, and what exists is not the honeycomb thinking network of the mechanical race that Chen Ming has, but the honeycomb thinking network of the Zerg race that it originally belongs to. It's outrageous. This situation means that as long as Chen Ming installs this secondary core on any Demon King, this Demon King is equivalent to relying on the Zerg honeycomb thinking network, not the honeycomb thinking network of the mechanical race. This situation subconsciously gave Chen Ming a few more ideas, and he immediately tried it. Use psychic energy to tune the consciousness in this secondary core, and use the special characteristics of the honeycomb thinking network of the mechanical race to balance the thinking fluctuations of this individual with those of the mechanical network. Try to connect this individual that originally belongs to the Zerg race to the honeycomb thinking network of the mechanical race. The result: it actually works. This individual can even share the consciousness communication in the two networks at the same time and benefit from the honeycomb thinking network. However, Chen Ming immediately terminated this connection because he was worried that something bad would happen. Of course, it doesn't mean that the two honeycomb networks will conflict or something. He will sense the risk of conflict at the first time. He was referring to other aspects. The mechanical hive mind network is something that the mechanical race has, and after Chen Ming captured the mechanical race, he could also show it with reasonable reasons. Several people had already provided Chen Ming with ideas for the development of psychic power in this area, but Chen Ming had never shown it. He wanted to treat this ability as a trump card that could be revealed to others. The Zerg race is another trump card, and it is a trump card that needs to be revealed by Whooping. He can't always link the two together. Otherwise, Whooping, who he worked so hard to create, would lose a large part of his meaning of existence. Moreover, if the mechanical race and the Zerg race are mixed together, the current allocation of authority and interference in the functions of the controllers of the two hive mind networks will be more troublesome. Although Chen Ming needs an individual with sufficient autonomy and loyalty to him to help manage the mechanical hive mind network, it is not a pure machine without its own thoughts like the Queen of Machinery, and the Queen of Zerg just meets the conditions. But the Queen of Zerg knows little about mechanization. The Queen of Insects only understands the operating principle of the machine and knows how to reproduce it, but she can never innovate in the field of machinery or manage a purely mechanized regional colony. Therefore, Chen Ming does not plan to study the situation of the mutual transformation between machinery and biology, and even the connection of two hive mind networks. Maybe there will be a chance in the future, but he has to wait until the mechanical race in his hands is fully developed and the existence of half-biological and half-mechanical individuals is truly studied. At least he understands what the secondary core of personality is. It's just that this result is a little scary. The current secondary core of personality can be said to be transformed by the mechanical race using dying humans. So what about the past? What about the Shining Civilization? What is the situation of the Shining Civilization? What kind of existence are they? Sure enough, I have to go to the Shining Civilization Research Institute later. Chen Ming thought so. But now this situation that does not affect his work for the time being should be put aside for the time being. As for the personality transformed by the consciousness of the Zerg, no, it is the secondary core of the Zerg. It seems to be inferior to personality in terms of ability, but it is better than using people to convert. Some of the top mechanical units need this secondary core. Chen Ming can't go to any prison in the Empire to ask for death row prisoners to convert. Wait, it seems that it is not impossible. But in any case, it is not a loss to have one more way to obtain it. And Chen Ming has another magical idea. He took out this personality secondary core separately and sent it to the Queen. The Queen has already devoured a wave of resources that the Hive planet originally had and is ready to start migrating. But it still has time to help Chen Ming do some small things. For example, convert this mechanical insect grid secondary core back to the state of a creature. Although the secondary core is small, the difficulty of transformation still exists, even greater than the transformation of the jump engine. However, the Queen of the Worm did not take much time to complete the transformation process. The Queen of the Worm, who evolved by devouring the fairy tree species, has changed its transformation ability. And the result of the transformation is a brain. The consciousness of the Zerg unit is still stored inside, and the consciousness of this Zerg unit has not changed at all. The Queen of the Worm just transformed the consciousness that originally existed in the data level back, and can also treat the transformed consciousness as an ordinary Zerg individual consciousness and put it into the body of other Zerg units. Even after being stuffed into the body of other units, this Zerg unit can still reconnect with the mechanical honeycomb network. Of course, Chen Ming still stopped this operation immediately. It's still the same problems as before. All have to be left for later. After saving and sealing the relevant data, Chen Ming is ready to start the next experiment. That is to transform ordinary Zerg units into machines. The process is smooth, but the result is not ideal. The effect is too poor. The mechanized Zerg units created do not have any new abilities. They simply changed from biological Zerg to mechanical Zerg. And because of the complete mechanization, even if these Zerg units maintain contact with the Zerg hive mind network after becoming mechanical creatures, they can no longer call on the psychic energy of the Queen, unable to obtain the improvement of organ tissue strength. Although some of Chen Ming's psychic energy can still be used, compared with the biological state, which only consumes energy to use Chen Ming's psychic energy, repairing in a completely mechanized state requires additional materials, which is completely meaningless. Even insects in a semi-mechanized state like Sample Zero can use energy to directly repair those mechanical organs and tissues. This complete mechanization, Chen Ming can't see any important meaning and value. It's a bit interesting, but not much. The most Chen Ming can think of is that when the mechanical race is in urgent need of troops, it can be used to quickly transform the Zerg units into mechanical units. But that is for a single mechanical race, and the mechanical race can transform other creatures into its own combat power. Chen Ming doesn't need to transform the Zerg into the mechanoids before he can go to the battlefield. As expected, he still has to transform the spiritual awakening nerve in the end. This is the main function of this device. And the black mist spiritual awakening nerve that Chen Ming had extracted some time ago has always been intact and can participate in this experiment at any time. It can only be said that Chen Ming's time in the Psychic Research Institute and the project has not been in vain. Through his learning in the project, he has been able to maintain the spiritual awakening nerve for a long time and will no longer die because the spiritual awakening nerve is separated from the human body for too long. Until today, the black mist spiritual awakening nerve can finally be used. Chen Ming directly used psychic energy to take the black mist spiritual awakening nerve stored in a canned device from the cultivation room of the spacecraft and sent it to the transformation device. The transformation device immediately received the spiritual awakening nerve and began to operate. This time the transformation process was quite fast. In just a blink of an eye, the black mist spiritual awakening nerve completely disappeared. What was left was a ping-pong-sized black spherical object emitting psychic energy fluctuations. This is the black mist core. The psychic energy and other byproducts emitted by the black mist spiritual nerve during the transformation process were collected by the facility. They were injected into several mechanical spiritual nerves that Chen Ming had successfully replicated. Chen Ming has not yet thought about the use of the black mist core. After all, the destruction core made by the mechanical clan is used to be installed in the cannon head of the spine peak cannon. He does not have a spine peak cannon at hand now. So for the time being, just use it as an additional psychic ability trigger. This thing is somewhat similar to the source of chaos, but there is no need to worry about triggering any situation that will cause a mental runaway entity. As for the black mist mechanical spiritual nerve, Chen Ming has already thought about the use. They will become what Chen Ming had thought about before. The special individuals of the Zerg can also be regarded as part of the individual abilities of the guards. Zerg guards were an idea Chen Ming had long had. It was only after today that this became an idea that he really had to make. Because in this raid on the mechanical race galaxy, Chen Ming saw many problems. Especially the problems during the ground combat period. Those insects that invaded the mechanical race planet and established a nest relied on space battleships when they broke into the planet. After entering the ground, they could only rely on some ordinary Zerg units carried by some battleships and the corpses of Zerg cruisers as cover, lacking the ability to protect themselves. Basically, they could only rely on themselves, and they could be wiped out at any time before going deep underground. If it weren't for the fact that the mechanical race seemed to have no experience in dealing with this situation this time, and the Zerg were given a gap to hide in the deep underground, this attack would definitely not be so smooth. And next time, the mechanical race would never give the Zerg such an opportunity. Once the Zerg reached the ground, the mechanical race would definitely find ways to destroy them at all costs. Not to mention that even if the Zerg units have formed a nest, they may be solved by the powerful ground combat units of the mechanical clan, such as the Demon King. Therefore, Chen Ming felt that when deploying Zerg to the mechanical clan's planet, it was necessary to have powerful combat units to provide security for the Zergs building the nest. This does not mean that it is enough to provide some Zerg units to participate in the invasion, but to thoroughly prepare for absolute defense. It just so happened that his previous idea of creating a powerful Zerg guard appeared in his mind. This unit should be used to protect the Queen of Zerg, which can be used to protect those Zergs performing important tasks. It does not mean that the guard must come to protect the Queen of Zerg. The Zerg with extremely strong combat power and small number can do more things. What's more, the Queen of Zerg has Chen Ming's psychic power as a guarantee, and it is impossible for her to encounter danger. The Guard is a unit that has no value for the Queen of Zerg, but for the entire Zerg, the Guard has value. The number of Zerg guards envisioned by Chen Ming will not be too many. They will not arrive at the ground with the Zerg invading fleet, but will use his psychic energy to deploy them at the same time when the units that make the Zerg nest arrive at the enemy's territory. Entering the atmosphere is the task of the Zerg spacecraft, and protecting the Zerg from being destroyed by the mechanical race after landing is the task of the Royal Guard Zerg. Therefore, Chen Ming has high requirements for the Royal Guard Zerg. At least it should be worth his separate psychic energy to deploy. And Chen Ming probably has the idea of the Royal Guard Zerg unit. Of course, it is not a Zerg like in Whooping. Although the Zerg combat unit made by imitating and whooping can be said to be the existence with the highest individual combat power in the entire Zerg, it also has shortcomings. The comprehensive multiple abilities brought by the Chaos Core in an Whooping's body cannot be replicated on ordinary Zerg units. Moreover, the strength of the individual Zerg imitating and whooping is only in its own combat power, and its protection ability is basically close to nothing. It is obviously unqualified as a Royal Guard. And the Royal Guard in Chen Ming's mind must have strong combat and protection capabilities enough to persist in the enemy's base camp until other Zergs hide underground. Therefore, the Royal Guard Zerg can abandon comprehensive combat power and mobility and develop purely in the direction of protection. However, no Zerg unit meets such conditions. Even the Titan, which seems to have the strongest protection ability and needs to be at the forefront of the ground battlefield, is the same. It also relies on the powerful charge to crush and destroy the enemy, and then passively absorbs all the damage by relying on its size to protect other Zerg in disguise. It is okay in some battlefields where they are confronting each other, but when invading and needing to temporarily stay in a certain place to perform protection tasks, the Titan's own ability is not enough. It can only be said that it is difficult for the Zerg, which is fearless, and even the weakest worker insects can fight to the death like all other insects when necessary, and it is really difficult for them to protect something. Not fearing death on the battlefield is not enough. Invasion can only send a limited number of Zerg to the enemy's territory. If you want to achieve your goal, you will just waste opportunities and give the enemy time to prepare. There must be enough combat power to protect those weak but extremely important bugs, so that the nest can be built from the ground and the enemy's planet can be destroyed from the inside. The Zerg itself has no protection ability. Chen Ming couldn't even imagine what kind of Zerg could meet his needs before. But if it is combined with the mechanical awakening nerve, the guards will have suitable manufacturing conditions. And Chen Ming has begun to arrange the idea of further increasing the intensity of the attack on the mechanical star field, which also allows the guards to have sufficient use environment. When the Zerg attacks the planet of the mechanical race and releases the Zerg, there are actually 3 dangers to protect these Zergs from building the nest. The encirclement and suppression of the ordinary units of the mechanical race, the targeting of the mechanical psychic units, and the attack of the orbital defense facilities. The ground units can rely on the Zerg's own ability to block. That is, protection is the main focus, and killing the enemy is supplementary. The premise is that the size of the guard Zerg must be large enough. As long as the Titan worm is used as a template, the original Titan worm's forelimbs are changed in shape, and a large amount of keratin is gathered to form a shield-like forelimb, and further thicken the front shell at the cost of giving up mobility in exchange for absolute frontal defense. In combat, it purely relies on its own mass and brute force to kill the enemy with shield strikes. In order to defend against the ordinary ground units of the mechanical race, the strength of the defense ability of these guard Zerg must at least be enough to withstand the direct frontal shooting of the centipede's charge cannon. This is relatively easy to solve. If the defense is not enough, the psychic power will make up for it. The effect of the Queen's psychic power is now enough to allow many Zergs to withstand many attacks from the mechanical race while specifically strengthening their own shell defense. So on this basis, it only needs to slightly improve the Titan worm, slightly modify the size and proportion of the body, so that the Zerg that originally charged into battle becomes the Zerg that garrisoned and defended. Then it only needs to ensure the most basic mobility and mobility, so that it will not be easily broken through by the flexible mechanical units. Then, if the air defense capability is improved a little bit, it will basically be enough to protect the Zerg units from the ordinary ground units of the mechanic and send them underground. If Chen Ming had to say these requirements, he could have come up with them after a little research. As long as he put forward the idea, the Queen would definitely help him realize it. The real source of trouble for Chen Ming to start working on the guards now is obviously the psychic units and orbital defense facilities of the mechanic. When the Zerg fleet broke through the space defense line of a planet, the biggest trouble after entering the planet was these two. Without sufficient support from the outside world, both the psychic mechanic units and the orbital defense facilities are problems that most Zerg units cannot solve, unless the enemy is completely crushed in numbers. Just like the battle that broke out just now. The mechanic failed to dispatch the Demon King in the first place to clean up the Zerg while the Zerg was not yet firmly established on the planet, which led to the development of the Zerg, and they relied on the terrifying number to crush the Demon King. If the Demon King came when the Zerg just landed, the situation would not be so smooth. Next time, Chen Ming can be 100% sure that the mechanical race will deploy at least 3 Demon Kings at the location where the Zerg lands. Therefore, psychic mechanical individuals like Demon Kings are problems that must be solved when the Zerg invades in the future. If it is a space war, the Purgatory Demon King is just like that, but on the ground, it is difficult to break through the psychic strength of the Purgatory core by relying solely on the physical strength of the ground Zerg units. And this requires mechanical spiritual nerves. The Black Fog psychic energy possessed by the Black Fog mechanical spiritual nerves that Chen Ming just obtained is a highly comprehensive existence that integrates displacement, protection, attack, and other abilities. Whether it is dealing with other psychic machines or orbital defense facilities, it can be relied on to solve most problems. Although the mechanical spiritual nerves are weaker than the spiritual nerves before transformation, for the Royal Guard Zerg, they do not need to defeat them. They only need to delay time. When the bugs burrow into the ground, their mission is completed. Moreover, Chen Ming has just obtained the Black Fog mechanical spiritual nerves, and it will definitely need to be adjusted later. If Chen Ming really lacks strength, he can just take some more spiritual energy from the Black Mist core. It is impossible to say that he cannot stop it, although it is indeed impossible to compete with the mechanical race for a long time. The mechanical spiritual nerve essentially has an upper limit, and it is just a means for the Shining Civilization to deal with spiritual energy as a byproduct. It cannot be compared with the Purgatory core in the hands of the mechanical race. But it is not too difficult to make the strength of the mechanical spiritual nerve enough to resist the attack of the orbital defense facilities for a period of time. Then Chen Ming only needs to cultivate the prototype of the Guard Zerg, and then implant the spiritual nerve into the freshly baked Guard Zerg unit. And then the cultivation of the Guard Zerg can be completed, probably. In fact, it should still not work, because there is still a very critical problem. How to let the Zerg unit learn to use the Black Mist mechanical spiritual nerve. The mechanical psychic creatures of the mechanical race have installed the mechanical spiritual nerve before becoming mechanical psychic creatures, and the biological and mechanical spiritual nerves are completely assimilated through the biological to mechanical transformation process. In this way, after the transformation is completed, the mechanical psychic creatures will master the use of those mechanical spiritual nerves through the coordination of nanorobots. But for the Zerg, they are no different from being useless after being completely transformed into machines. If ordinary Zerg with only a mechanical appearance master the psychic power of the weak mechanical spiritual nerves and lose the power of the Queen, and cannot use the mechanical spiritual nerves and the power of the Queen together, it would be better to go directly to the Zerg. So this is also a problem that needs to be considered. And this problem has been solved with the emergence of half-mechanical and half-biological individuals like Sample Zero that combine the advantages of both. As long as the transformation process is only halfway, allowing the Zerg individuals to partially mechanize and master the mechanical spiritual nerve ability, and retaining most of the Zerg abilities, The problem of not being able to use the Zerg and mechanical spiritual nerve abilities at the same time can be solved. However, when designing this complete device, Chen Ming's current need to convert only half of it was not taken into account. It does not have such a function. And if the Zerg being converted is taken out when the conversion process is halfway through, or it is forced to shut down directly, then there will definitely be problems, rather than creating a half-mechanical and half-biological existence that can truly achieve the effect. As for the damaged conversion facility that was eliminated, it is impossible to use it directly to convert the guards. It seems that he has to fix it himself. Chen Ming has always had a psychic power that he has not used on the damaged equipment. It is the advanced psychic effect of repair, deep repair, which can also be called deep repair. Its previous function can optimize the target equipment and make it close to the almost perfect existence under its current function. And now, after Chen Ming has experienced another event related to the Scarlet Dimension, it has undergone new changes. Deep repair will optimize the target of the action in a comprehensive direction. It will optimize in the direction of the original target's function. And now, as long as Chen Ming needs and has ideas, he can actively use psychic power to intervene in the process of deep repair. The optimization process is no longer comprehensive, but shifts in a direction he wants. For example, Chen Ming can optimize the 1/3 conversion facility in his hand to convert only half-mechanical and half-biological individuals. Chen Ming did not use this psychic power before because he had not experienced the recent Scarlet Dimension incident, and he only had one copy. If there was a problem with the repair before, such as repairing the facility completely, so that he could not continue to convert half-mechanical and half-biological individuals, it would be troublesome. Now he has the knowledge supplement of the Scarlet Dimension, and his mastery of psychic power has reached a higher level, and he has a second complete device. He even mastered a lot of knowledge about half-mechanical and half-biological organisms through sample number 0. It is enough to do this. With the activation of Chen Ming's psychic power, the directional deep maintenance effect acted on the 1/3 conversion facility of the mechanical family. When he actively stimulated the psychic power for further influence, the facility gradually lost most of its functions, and finally only had the ability to mechanize some tissues and organs of organisms. Although this device has lost a lot of extra value, its optimized result perfectly meets Chen Ming's needs. A guard Zerg that was just cultivated by the Queen and implanted with the black fog mechanical awakening nerve was also stuffed into this newly optimized facility. After Chen Ming set the transformation target to the flesh and blood near the mechanical awakening nerve implanted under the back shell of the guard Zerg, the transformation began. The nanorobot crawled out of the facility and acted on the back of the guard Zerg. The way the nanorobot works is slightly different from before. It no longer completely transforms the flesh and blood tissue into machinery. Instead, it transforms part of the flesh and blood tissue into a structure that can be connected to the machinery, and transform part of the machinery into a structure that can maintain a close connection with the flesh and blood without mutual repulsion. What Chen Ming wants is fusion, not transformation or replacement. This is his idea. He relied on his psychic power to apply his ideas to the facility without understanding the operating principles of these devices. And he wanted to go further. While the transformation facility was running, he still used the psychic power of deep maintenance on the facility. He wanted to optimize the facility to the look he wanted to see the most. Although he didn't understand the operating principle of the transformation facility at all, his psychic power could understand it. His hands could help him do what he could calculate, and his psychic power could help him do what he wanted to do. Time passed quickly. The transformation process was over. The Guardian Zerg crawled out of the facility. Its appearance did not change much, except that there were mechanical spines running through the entire body on its back. In the body of the Guardian Zerg, which could not be seen from the outside, there were countless nerves derived from the mechanical spines and spread throughout the body of the Guardian Zerg. These nerves were extensions of the mechanical spines, allowing the power of the black mist to permeate the entire body of the Zerg. A faint black mist was slowly emanating from the body of the Guardian Zerg. As an exoskeleton creature, the Zerg looked weird no matter how it looked with an extra spine, but it did not affect its effect. Chen Ming used his psychic power to bring the guard Zerg to his side. The huge body suddenly appeared in front of him. Feeling the psychic power brought to it by the black fog mechanical spiritual nerve, he released his mental power to test the transformed guard Zerg. No actual combat is required. Only the stimulation of mental power and simple simulation with mental power are needed. Chen Ming can be sure that 3 or so guard Zergs are enough to protect the Zerg invading the planet for a period of time under the attack of the Infernal Lord and the orbital defense facilities. Presumably, there will be the first battle of this guard Zerg soon. At that time, whether such guards have value in existence can be verified. After recording the data of the guard in detail, Chen Ming sent it back to Chigo, asking the Queen to continue to create new guards. He would start the equipment again for transformation. So there is not much to do for the guards at this point. The next project to be done is the transformation of the Black Mist Psychic's prosthesis. The parasite had been implanted in the Black Mist Psychic's body before, and the transformation of the human body into the insect body was almost complete. However, Chen Ming has not yet started to work on the Black Mist Psychic's brain, because he has one last thing to do. He asked the Black Mist Psychic to come from Chao Fan, who had been raising Black Mist, and prepared a Black Mist mechanical spiritual nerve that was about the same size as the human spine. He asked the Queen to perform a spine replacement operation on the Black Mist Psychic and implanted the Black Mist mechanical spiritual nerve. Black Mist psychic power is originally the psychic power of the Black Mist Psychic, so there is no need to master the use of the mechanical spiritual nerve. The Black Mist Psychic's body instinctively mobilizes the Black Mist psychic power. Then the consciousness in his brain was stimulated. After the body was supported by mechanical spiritual nerves, it was enough to support the consciousness of a psychic who was much weaker. The Black Mist Psychic woke up. He could feel something wriggling in his body and wanted to say something, but his mouth was completely unresponsive. He wanted to mobilize his psychic power, but his psychic power seemed to have abandoned him and regarded him as nothing. His consciousness was struggling frantically, but his body just lay quietly on the operating table. He could do nothing. This feeling of powerlessness and the strange environment around him gradually gave rise to fear in the heart of the Black Mist Psychic. And when a sound of footsteps slowly approached from the blind spot that he could not see, the fear continued to increase. Okay, see you in the next life. This familiar voice appeared in the ears of the Black Mist Psychic, and his pupils shrank to the extreme in an instant because he was extremely scared. But in the next moment, his pupils slowly expanded. Chen Ming let him wake up just to test it out, to see what would happen if the psychic had a mechanical psychic nerve implanted with his own psychic effect. The test was done, the data was recorded, and the Black Mist Psychic had a last look at the world. At least he would not die inexplicably. As a Left Path member, he had to die in fear, right? Otherwise, it would be too unfair to him. The Black Mist Psychic's brain was directly devoured by the Queen, and the memories in it were extracted by the Queen and handed over to Chen Ming. These memories were not valuable, so Chen Ming did not pay too much attention to them. He still had to complete the transformation process of the Black Mist Psychic first. He wanted to make the Black Mist Psychic into a prosthesis after the fusion of biological, mechanical, and psychic abilities. Chen Ming had also thought of its background story. It was an experimental subject of a Left Path human and Zerg fusion experiment, mixed with some of the psychic effects of the Black Mist Psychic. The meaning of his existence was to become a psychic who induced the Zerg to attack the mechanical race. A psychic suspected to be a remnant of Zhuijing used the Black Fog Psychic to guide the Zerg to do things. Of course, this is something that will happen later. He will appear after the script he imagined for An Whooping is over. If Chen Ming guessed correctly, the Black Fog prosthesis should soon find a suitable opportunity to appear. With the previous and just experience, Chen Ming quickly completed the transformation of the Black Fog Psychic and sent the Black Fog prosthesis to a suitable place. After sending the Black Fog prosthesis away, Chen Ming now has almost done what he has to do. The next step is to target the mechanical race. But before taking the next step, he also did another thing. He took Yin Xiong back from Chao Fan, extracted his spiritual iron awakening nerve that can transform ordinary metal into spiritual energy metal, and transformed it into a spiritual iron core and spiritual iron mechanical awakening nerve through facilities. It was also implanted into the Zerg individuals at the level of the guards, and continued to be used to provide research samples for Chaofan and provide spiritual energy metal materials for Chen Ming. Make it a thorough tool. It can be regarded as helping Yin Xiong to be freed from torture and reincarnate as soon as possible. Of course, because Yin Xiong himself is a level 6 psychic. It was only because Chen Ming had used a trick to defeat him. Chen Ming did not give him the opportunity to wake up and take a last look at the world, and by the way, know how he died. He directly extracted the awakening nerve and killed him decisively. The same thing happened to another psychic. His awakening nerve was also extracted by Chen Ming, and he was also transformed into a prosthesis by Chen Ming, but Chen Ming did not transform its awakening nerve into a core, but kept it. This kind of pure spiritual power is concentrated to the extreme to achieve various effects. It's quite special. There may be other values if you keep it. After extracting the awakening nerves of these two people and doing the corresponding processing, Chen Ming has also completed something he has been thinking about for a long time. Next, after a simple rest, he will reach out his claws to the mechanical race again. Soon Chen Ming turned his attention to the motherships stained with the blood of the Zerg units. The gray-green blood was the trace left by the Zerg fleet that desperately crossed the shield of the battleship. The Zerg blood, like everything else controlled by Chen Ming, can provide him with vision as long as Chen Ming wants, and can also mark the position of the mothership. He can even use the Zerg blood to send the afterglow core, which originally belonged to the mechanical structure. What this means is self-evident. However, so far, the Zerg blood has only infected 4 motherships. It is only less than half of the number of motherships that Chen Ming speculated that the mechanical family has. If he does things early, Chen Ming feels that he may lose some things that he could have gotten. And he did not find the foreign mechanical family fleet assistance that should have appeared. The 3 battleships that the mechanical family used to ambush him before and the other fleets that followed behind did not look like foreign reinforcements. It may be because he acted too quickly and the number of Zerg fleets was too large, resulting in the mechanical family reinforcements not rushing out when they found that the situation was not right. Since the foreign mechanical race has not been exposed, Chen Ming really does not need to rush to control those motherships. It is needless to say which one is more valuable, 4 or 10. He continued to observe in secret. After the sweep of the Zerg fleet just now, the 4 motherships started the jump engine again for some reason and arrived at 4 different star systems inside the mechanical star field. Chen Ming speculated that they should be going for maintenance. Although they did not have much damage, they must have consumed a lot of war supplies after destroying hundreds of thousands of Zerg cruisers, and maintenance is a necessary process. But the specific situation is somewhat different from what Chen Ming thought before. They did not jump again or enter hyperspace to return to the giant dock. Instead, they directly found a planet in the star system they jumped to and landed on it. Through the Zerg blood left on the mothership, Chen Ming could see that the planets where the motherships landed had one thing in common. That is, there were large-scale mechanical buildings that looked very similar on them. It looked like a factory. The mothership landed in the center of the factory-like buildings on the surface of the planet. These similar colony buildings on different planets have a large area inside. It can accommodate the mothership to dock. And just after the mothership landed, immediately, the mechanical clans and logistics came from all directions to repair the hull and replenish supplies. It looks like these places are specially designed for the mothership. The mothership can also be used as a factory when it does not need maintenance. There should be many places in the entire star field with such buildings, so that the mothership can land and repair at any time, and it is no longer necessary to return to the giant dock for maintenance. Chen Ming felt a little pity. If he went back to the giant dock directly, he would be happy. But it's okay. At least such a place is still valuable. After all, it is a factory that can be used to repair the main battleship, and there should be some main battleship-related technologies preserved. Chen Ming has begun to move towards a higher level after learning the cruiser technology some time ago. So the technology in this factory is also valuable to him. After confirming that there was no device detecting psychic fluctuations near the factory, Chen Ming sent some iron atoms to the mothership through psychic power. These iron atoms were completely undetected. Some of them easily went underground. And when these iron atoms reached the deepest part of the ground, Chen Ming continued to use psychic power to send several insect eggs there. The queen immediately took over the eggs and started a new round of hatching and breeding. Since the flesh and blood of the Zerg can send iron atoms to the main battleship under the action of Chen Ming's psychic power, then metal can also send the flesh and blood of the Zerg here under the same conditions. This operation that avoids the eyes of all mechanical races will bring him unimaginable advantages for the mechanical race in the near future. The remaining iron atoms are scattered in different corners of the entire maintenance center. Chen Ming plans to find an opportunity to control the maintenance center and the entire colony it belongs to. However, he plans not to control the mechanical race units in the facility, just like he does not directly control the 4 motherships. The main reason is that the mechanical race units he controls will become abnormal sub-individuals and be easily discovered by the mechanical race. Anyway, the iron atoms have been left on the planet, and the eggs have developed underground. Unless the mechanical race has the ability to check every inch of land and every atom of the entire planet, it is impossible to erase his influence. If the influence cannot be erased, the mothership and the colony of this mechanical race will sooner or later be his. Moreover, for Chen Ming, the importance of the mechanical race mothership is quite high, since it is unlikely that he will have access to the 2 giant docks of the mechanical race in a short period of time. Then controlling these maintenance centers can be regarded as a substitute. Controlling the maintenance centers will give you more opportunities to contact more mechanical race warships and more mechanical race motherships. Only by holding back can you gain more pieces. Of course, the premise is that the mothership needs to enter the port for maintenance. Chen Ming cannot influence the mothership that does not enter the port for maintenance through the maintenance center. The mechanical race's mothership is different from the main battleship of the Empire's afterglow. The mechanical race's mothership also bears the responsibility of a mobile factory to a certain extent. It can use the factory to manufacture war supplies and various mechanical races, and can also use the factory for self-repair. As long as the supplies are sufficient, the mechanical race's mothership can be operated for a long time without having to return to the port frequently to replenish war supplies. Unless the supplies are exhausted or they suffer serious damage that is difficult to repair themselves, they will not return to the giant dock or maintenance center under normal circumstances. The reason why the 4 motherships landed this time is because Chen Ming's hundreds of thousands of Zerg cruisers made the mechanical race almost exhausted. So Chen Ming has to create more opportunities to force the mothership to take action. Not to mention the problem of material consumption, just the increase in the number of motherships and Zerg battles. Chen Ming will have a greater probability of influencing the mothership through the blood tissue of the Zerg. And the way to force the mothership to take action is very simple, creating a situation where only the mothership can solve the problem. Chen Ming opened the star map on the console at the highest point in front of him. Compared with the last time he looked at the star map, there were more things on the star map in front of him. Some marks marked out the important surfaces that Bai Quan had told him before. Among them, the 10 most obvious marks were the mechanical family's psychic signal generator, 2 giant docks, and 7 star gates. These 10-star systems are the most important information for the mechanical family. If you want to force the mechanical family's mothership to go out, it should be the easiest to go to these places to cause trouble. And it just so happens that these places, whether they are star gates or giant docks or generators for the mechanical family to release psychic signals, are all very valuable things in Chen Ming's eyes, especially the star gates and giant docks. The former is of great significance to Chen Ming's colony. After all, the location where Chen Ming's colony will be built in the future is absolutely far away from the Empire, and the existence of the Stargate can shorten this distance. And as long as both ends of the Stargate are controlled in his hands, the shortening of this distance can even be one way. Although the Stargate has problems such as high energy consumption. But for Chen Ming, energy can be regarded as the least important issue. With the existence of the Zerg, he can completely use the planet as fuel and convert it into energy crystals. Make up for the shortcomings of using the Stargate. As long as he is given the opportunity to contact the Stargate, he can directly rob the entire Stargate. As for the latter's giant dock, As a production base for the main battleship, its value is nothing to say. After the Zerg's cruiser fleet of more than 100,000 chose to fight to the death against the three main battleships. But the biggest result in the end was that the rest of the lower-level fleets following the three main battleships were completely destroyed, and only a small part of the armor of the three main battleships was damaged. Chen Ming's desire for the main battleship has changed from envy to the existence that must be obtained. Needless to say, the giant dock that can produce main battleships. Although he has a blueprint, he obtained the blueprint from the early years, and the technology is relatively backward. What's more, the cost of building is not as low as the cost of robbing. Why build if you can rob? However, all these important places on the star map are inside the mechanical star field. Although Chen Ming can rely on his psychic power to conduct a jump raid on the interior of the mechanical star field, he can also use psychic power to retreat if he is chased. But if he fails to achieve his goal in the first raid, and his goal is discovered by the mechanical race, then the mechanical race may concentrate its strength to protect those important landmarks, which will make subsequent actions more troublesome. So Chen Ming's goal can only be placed on those galaxies near the border of the mechanical star field for the time being. Use attacking these places as a means to attract the attention of the mothership. Anyway, the mothership is also one of his goals. As long as his actions can attract the mothership, it will not be in vain, just do it slowly. Chen Ming's eyes scanned the star map in front of him. Soon he chose a star area on the edge of the mechanical star field, which is also located in a small nebula. This star area in the nebula is rich in mineral resources. Not only are there various asteroid mineral resources in space, but most of the planets in this nebula have rich mineral distribution on the surface and underground. These galaxies are important resource production areas for the mechanical race, and can also be said to be an important guarantee for the logistics of the mechanical race. At the same time, those mineral veins can also become an important source of energy for the Zerg. After determining the target of the next action, Chen Ming turned his attention to the Queen. The Queen is still on the Zerg nest planet that has already begun to develop the resources of the core of the planet. And this Zerg nest planet has now been greatly reduced. A Zerg fleet that is larger than before is quietly waiting in orbit. It feels that it will not take long before the entire planet will disappear in the universe. This is not important. Anyway, there are countless planets in the universe that have no development value, and they are useless in themselves. And these planets that have no development value are treasure troves of endless energy for the Zerg, and no one or anything can touch them. Just when Chen Ming asked the Zerg fleet to start the next move, something suddenly happened to Manhwa. It's indeed here, Chen Ming said secretly. Instead of rushing to let the Zerg fleet set off again, the Zerg Queen began to reorganize the fleet. After something happened over in Manhwa's side, there was no need to stay on the insect nest planet that had been mostly mined. The insect queen needs to go elsewhere to find the next 100 insect nest planets. Maybe it's near the mechanical tribe's star field, or maybe it's near Chen Ming's pioneering land. After arranging the tasks for the insect queen, Chen Ming transferred his main consciousness to Manhwa, who had lived peacefully for a period of time. And Manhwa just opened the door to his room under the control of part of his consciousness. Standing outside the door were Liang Fei and Li Wei. Both of their faces were very solemn, and they seemed to be worried about something. Chen Ming felt that the specific concern should be in Manhwa. After all, although his main consciousness has never been here, part of his consciousness has been paying attention here, and has been controlling Manhwa to do what Manhwa should do. For example, while Chen Ming's body and other prostheses are working hard, he can travel around and enjoy delicious food to relieve mental stress, and new relationships with colleagues and friends. Of course, the people who got along best with Manhwa were Liang Fei and Li Wei, who had a fateful friendship on Manhwa. In particular, the relationship between Li Wei and Manhwa is even closer. After all, Li Wei was able to leave Manhwa alive because Manhwa saved his life with his spiritual power. So now, after Chen Ming took the initiative to leak information related to the Zerg, and the Manhwa incident happened, the two of them behaved like this. However, Chen Ming still pretended to know nothing and asked, "What's wrong?" "Someone is looking for you." What's the matter? I don't know. It seems that the minister of an independent supervision department of the empire in our government department was arranged by someone very high up. Please pay more attention. Okay. Chen Ming agreed. His terminal received a call. It was Liang Fei's boss, who could also be considered an Whooping's current boss, who called and asked Chen Ming to go to a place in the government office building. Chen Ming nodded to the two people in front of him and set off immediately. Soon, he came to the government building where he had worked for a while, and came to a corner room that he had never been to despite working here for so long. There was a man in a suit wearing sunglasses at the door. He nodded when he saw Chen Ming coming over, and made way for Chen Ming to enter. Chen Ming took another look at him, and felt that this man seemed to be from the empire. But he said nothing and kept his hand on the doorknob. His movements suddenly stopped, because he could feel that the door handle in front of him, the entire door, and even the wall next to the door, the entire room were made of silent alloy. Do you need to be so serious? Chen Ming frowned, but still pushed open the door of the closed room. There was only a table, 2 chairs, and a lamp embedded in the wall above the head. There is also a person sitting on a chair. Nothing else. Hello, and whooping. We must have met a few times during this time, right? The person sitting waved his hand towards Chen Ming, indicating that Chen Ming should sit down opposite him. After Chen Ming sat down, he nodded and said, "Yes, Minister Ho from the National Supervision Department. Do you have anything to do with me?" Minister Ho pushed a few photos to An Whooping and said, "Take a look at these first." Chen Ming took the photos and found that the ones above were the same photos that Chen Ming gave to Bai Quan before. I can only say that the news spread a bit fast, and the Empire's reaction speed is also a bit fast. Chen Ming thought this, making An Whooping look expressionless. Did you have any cooperation with Chen Ming? Did you work together to create those Zerg biological spaceships? Minister Ho said with a sincere look. It's not that you can't cooperate privately, but Zerg-related matters involve all aspects. The Thorn Zerg were once enemies of the Empire, but now they have evolved the ability to compete with the Empire and even started to expand, so we must figure it out and have countermeasures. Personally, I absolutely trust you to be a good person based on what you did before. But not the Thrawn. The Empire needs to know more. And Whooping let out a long sigh and asked, "What do you think now?" Upon hearing the word you, Minister Ho immediately changed his attitude of pretending to be stupid and asked very decisively and quickly, "Do you know Chen Ming?" Just as he asked this, his eyes were fixed on An Whooping's face, trying to use his sudden attack to find out something from An Whooping. Of course, Chen Ming would not let him down, and he immediately performed a performance that caused some changes in An Whooping's micro-expression. These changes told Minister Ho that An Whooping did know Chen Ming. Therefore, even if An Whooping is silent now, it will not affect Minister Ho's understanding of some information that he thinks is correct. Minister Ho continued, "As far as we know, Chen Ming has been using his psychic powers to expand externally, and he started a long time ago. And that insect nest planet is on the route he pioneered, and it's not too far away from the Empire. As long as you go out and explore a little, you can easily find it. But he hid the existence of this planet and even went out of his way to hide it. Even when he was guiding the fleet of the 14th Legion to which he now belongs, he deliberately avoided it. Chen Ming is a psyker related to machinery and spaceships. We can't imagine the reason why he helped the Zerg hide the existence of this planet. But we want to get the reason why he helped you hide it. Your psychic powers will definitely allow you to thrive on that planet. And a powerful psychic who is living outside and unable to return to the Empire is also worthy of Chen Ming's attention." And Whooping suddenly lowered his head to avoid letting Minister Ho see the expression on his face. However, the image of his hands intertwined under the table was quickly captured by the surveillance camera and brought to Minister Ho's eyes. Minister Ho still said nothing and just continued to tell his speculation. Chen Ming definitely discovered this insect nest planet on the way to open up and discovered you, or you discovered him, and the two of you had a friendly exchanges and reached cooperation. He provides you with a spaceship, allowing the Zerg to evolve the same capabilities as the spaceship to help you return to the Empire. And you agreed to some of his requests or conditions. Joining the Psychic Society should be one of them. All this. Chen Ming was a little embarrassed. It seemed that in Whooping's decisive agreement to join the Psychic Association had aggravated the people in the Empire's suspicion of the relationship between in Whooping and himself. But this can be considered a good thing. At least in this way, the possibility of in Whooping being Chen Ming is further reduced. At least for now, no one in the Empire except the boss would doubt this. Who would have thought that Chen Ming, a person who is closely related to machinery, would suddenly be related to creatures like Zerg? And Whooping continued to lower his head and said, "What exactly do you want to say?" Minister Ho's tone became serious, but considering in Whooping's behavior all the time, he subconsciously softened his tone slightly and said, "I just want to confirm something, whether the Thorn Zerg is a threat to the Empire." And Whooping was silent for a while and responded, "It won't happen, at least not mine." "Oh, the ones you control." Tisk. And Whooping raised his head and said, "Let me start from the beginning. I concealed some information last time. I'm not just a worker insect on that insect hive planet. I actually have a spiritual link with the insect queen on that insect hive planet. I lived on that planet like a fish in water, but it was not a human planet after all." Seeing that in Whooping's attitude was quite cooperative, Minister Ho immediately relaxed his tone and asked softly, "So what I just said?" "Absolutely, but my bug had some conflicts with Chen Ming at the beginning. We didn't get to know each other until after the conflict. It's like we don't know each other until we fight. After he learned about my abilities, he gave me a spaceship and asked me to use the Zerg to transform into a biological spaceship for him. Then he gave me the opportunity to escape from that planet and return to the Empire. You can ask anything else you want to ask. I will tell you everything I can." Minister Ho was very satisfied with in Whooping's attitude and immediately asked a key question. "Can Chen Ming's spiritual energy control the biological spacecraft?" Chen Ming originally asked me to build a biological spaceship for this purpose, but it didn't work. The biological spaceship only looks like a spaceship, but it is actually a super large thorn Zerg, so Chen Ming cannot control it. All the Zerg species on that planet, and all the Zerg biological spaceships, only listen to the instructions of the insect queen who is linked to my spiritual power. Wait a moment. Minister Ho took the terminal to record what in Whooping said. When he heard the spiritual link, he immediately stopped and asked, "You have a spiritual link with that insect queen. Doesn't it matter to you now?" "It's okay. Chen Ming and I have done a lot of cooperative experiments together before. We also tested it when the spiritual link was temporarily disconnected. Basically, we didn't have much of an impression. But I don't know what the queen will do if it goes too long." As a member of the ruling party of the Empire, Minister Ho happened to know some of the conflicts between Chen Ming and the Fifth Army. After hearing that in Whooping and Chen Ming had conducted many cooperative experiments, I suddenly understood why Chen Ming had a conflict with the Fifth Army. Chen Ming must have contributed to in Whooping's return to the Empire. And for in Whooping, a former commoner, to have so much hatred for Zhuijing and to accurately find Zhuijing's location after returning to the Empire, Chen Ming must have contributed. The relationship between the two is definitely not just as simple as partners. At least it has a closer relationship. Therefore, when Chen Ming learned that what the Fifth Legion did might lead to in Whooping's death, of course he would be angry. The situations before and after were connected, and Minister Ho believed that the facts were what he thought now. Although Chen Ming himself is considered a dangerous person, it is his spiritual power that is dangerous, not him as a person. Chen Ming's character has always been very good in the eyes of most people. Except that the incident with the 14th Legion last time was a bit violent. But as long as they understand the reasons, most people will understand that the biggest problem is the Legion itself. Although in Whooping is extremely violent, and even had a mild case of Berserker syndrome some time ago, he is also a pretty good person. So it is normal for these two people to get to know each other after fighting. The doubts he had about the relationship between in Whooping and Chen Ming were gradually disappearing as he asked in Whooping about it. Of course, even if it disappeared, he would not forget the questions he should ask. Minister Ho continued to ask a few questions that were insignificant to Chen Ming. A more critical question was asked. "Is there anything special about that insect queen? Why can it be spiritually linked to you?" Chen Ming had already prepared for this question and replied, "I don't know. When our spaceship crashed, everyone died, and I was the only one who survived. As soon as I crawled out of the wreckage, I was dragged to the underground lair by several insects and saw the insect queen. Then my spiritual energy awakened, and I had a spiritual connection with it. To this day, I still don't know why. No one can say for sure about psychic powers. Minister Ho passed this question and continued to ask, and his next question was also more important. How much Zerg power do you have? Chen Ming said truthfully again, only that planet. However, Minister Ho asked with some doubt, just one planet? Judging from the information obtained by Chen Ming, the scale of power possessed by ManhwaRecap is not something that can be achieved on just one planet. It's really just a planet. Minister Ho obviously still didn't believe it, but he did not continue to ask, but changed the question. I noticed that almost all of your Zerg fleet are cruisers. Don't you have higher or lower warships? Yes, there are, but no matter how small a ship is, I feel like it's really just cannon fodder in terms of combat effectiveness. The Zerg's biological spaceships have no shields. Small boats cannot rely on the shields of larger ships to work, so small boats are basically integrated into cruisers and used as fighter planes. I really don't have a high-end one, which is a battleship. These can be easily seen through records, so Chen Ming did not hide anything at all at this time and continued to cooperate with him and said whatever he asked. Why doesn't the bioship have a shield? What's the reason for this? It's just that the insect queen can't convert the shield system into a biological device. If she can't get a shield, she'll just have to use armor to resist. Minister Ho nodded and continued to ask, then why did you let your Zerg race attack the mechanical race? That's what Chen Ming needs. And Whooping decisively betrayed Chen Ming at this time and said, some of his resource mining strongholds were demolished by the Machine Clan. He didn't want to fight against the Machine Clan too early, so he asked me to take revenge. I see, but in terms of revenge, why would your Zerg fleet be completely annihilated? The expression on Whooping's face changed slightly when he heard this question, and he responded, because Chen Ming needs to wipe out his entire army so that he will not leave too many traces. I also have my own thoughts here. If those Zerg fleets survive, they will have to return to their home planet sooner or later. In order to avoid being destroyed by the mechanical tracking group, it would be a more appropriate ending. Minister Ho heard this and couldn't understand Whooping's thoughts, so he directly regarded the second half of Nwupa's sentence as a lie told under pressure from Chen Ming. After all, those were tens of thousands of cruisers, and they were just given away so casually. Which star field these tens of thousands of cruisers are placed in is not a treasure, but they are given away casually by Whooping just so that the coordinates of the home star are not exposed. Is it really? Or is there really only one planet occupied by the Zerg? He asked, didn't you help Chen Ming clean up the mechanical fleet on a large scale earlier? Didn't they all jump from the home star? Aren't you afraid of being discovered at this time? At that time, almost all the machines that the Zerg fleet raided were wiped out. Even if there were survivors, it would be impossible to track the location of the home planet in such a short period of time. I have time to move the remaining Zerg away. Move? Where do you plan to go? Not sure yet, because I have to continue to work for Chen Ming, and there are no good places nearby. Minister Ho did not continue to ask further on this topic. And Whooping had already decided to migrate after exposing the coordinates of the Zerg home planet, and he should not make the mistake of exposing the coordinates again, no matter to whom. Asking for such crucial information about abilities was in vain, so he changed the topic again. What did Chen Ming give you to make you sacrifice so much to help him? And Whooping didn't answer and chose to remain silent. Minister Ho seemed to have noticed something and asked tentatively, aren't you curious about how we discovered your Zerg? And Whooping said matter-of-factly, how else can we find out? I'm helping Chen Ming, and he can't cover up an attack of that scale. If any ship in the Empire sees it and sends the news back, won't he be discovered? Minister Ho showed a smile on his face and said, but in fact, the Empire still has not received any news about the reconnaissance fleet lingering behind the mechanical tribe. It was Chen Ming who took the initiative to leak the news. It seems that he wanted to clear up the relationship with you, but he failed to do so. And he probably didn't expect you to tell him so decisively. After Minister Ho finished speaking, he saw that Whooping was stunned and made small movements with his hands more and more frequently. He suddenly felt that the relationship between Chen Ming and ManhwaRecap might not be a partnership, but a unilateral cooperation relationship in which one party was strong and the other was weak. Considering that ManhwaRecap's previous situation was indeed controlled by others, it was normal for Chen Ming to take the opportunity to do something. And he nodded secretly in his heart at this time. As a member of the ruling class of the empire, he did not want the two powerful and troublesome psychics to have too close a connection. If the cooperation between ManhwaRecap and Chen Ming could be slightly affected, whether it was equal or unequal cooperation, it would be valuable to the empire. At the moment, ManhwaRecap was not sure whether he was angry because Chen Ming took the initiative to sever the relationship in advance, or because he was worried about not being able to achieve Chen Ming's goal. I believe that this could also plant a thorn between the two. Minister Ho then brought up the next issue that might affect the relationship between the two. What about the battle that wiped out your Zerg fleet later? As far as I know, if it was just for revenge, it would be almost done when your fleet destroyed all the ships that attacked Chen Ming's base. There is no benefit in continuing the attack. Instead, you were counterattacked by the mechanical mothership, causing you more losses. Is this revenge on the mechanical race? Why do I feel like it's against you? ManhwaRecap did not answer the question directly this time, but thought about it carefully. He pretended to not want to say something, but suddenly wanted to say it, and replied, "It's not just revenge. Chen Ming wanted to use my power to steal something from the mechanical race. But the result? I don't know if you saw it. 3 motherships suddenly appeared and destroyed the planet without giving Chen Ming a chance to steal things, and all my Zerg were left there. What did he want? I don't know." ManhwaRecap responded, and immediately added in the wrong direction. "But I guess he asked me to make such a big effort and make such a big noise. Maybe he wanted the mechanical race planet itself, so the mechanical race used the mothership to destroy the planet. The mechanical race doesn't need to do this, right? If my psychic power is counted, there should be some, whether it's for me or Chen Ming to contact the planet. This planet is already finished for the mechanical race." Minister Ho immediately thought about what ManhwaRecap said, and found that it was true. As long as Chen Ming's psychic power allows him to contact the mechanical race's territory, the entire planet may fall directly under his control. And if ManhwaRecap's psychic power is calculated according to what we have seen so far, such a small amount of resources on a planet can produce a fleet of more than 100,000 cruisers and still retain a large number of manpower. Such a terrifying resource conversion efficiency. If the Zerg parasitizes deep underground on the planet, then if the mechanical race does not have weapons targeting the deep underground, it can only destroy the planet to avoid the planet becoming a nest for the Zerg to grow. But it is not yet certain whether ManhwaRecap and his Zerg really have such amazing capabilities. So for the time being, he can only put a question mark on what ManhwaRecap said on the recorded intelligence. In addition, Minister Ho also knows that haste makes waste, so after asking this question, he did not continue to stir up trouble, nor did he continue to overforce ManhwaRecap after knowing enough information. That's about it. The last question: do you have the idea of leaving the Empire? Leave? Why should I leave after I went to so much trouble to return to the Empire? Is it fun to deal with bugs every day? When ManhwaRecap said this, his tone was a bit aggressive. But Minister Ho did not care. Anyway, he had seen ManhwaRecap's attitude today. Although ManhwaRecap and Chen Ming can both be considered good people, their ideas and attitudes are completely different. He should have a chance to talk to ManhwaRecap again in the future. Minister Ho turned off the terminal, stretched out his hand to ManhwaRecap, and said, "Okay, let's stop here today. Thank you for your cooperation." Although ManhwaRecap looked a little unhappy, he didn't go too far. He stood up and shook hands with Minister Ho, turned around, and left the room made of silent alloy material. Minister Ho opened the terminal again after closing the door and reported the news he had just obtained to the top leaders of the Empire. After talking about the truth that Chen Ming wanted the Empire to know about the Zerg attack on the mechanical clan, which Chen Ming took the initiative to reveal, Minister Ho talked about ManhwaRecap's psychic power again. It has been confirmed that ManhwaRecap's psychic power is not just a simple physical enhancement type of psychic power, but a more special psychic power that can establish spiritual connections with living things and then allow oneself to possess the biological abilities of the connection. This type of psychic power is rarer than psychics who have both physical mutations and physical enhancements. There was one before. Minister Ho was suddenly interrupted by the person on the other end of the terminal. Don't mention this. I know that person's situation better than you. Let's continue talking about Whooping. Yes, and Whooping's psychic power is definitely more than just strengthening himself. His ability to control the Zerg is definitely stronger than his own ability. The preliminary speculation of the Psychic Research Institute is that the group of Zerg he controls is special and has the ability to convert inorganic matter into energy, or Whooping has the ability to strengthen the Zerg, giving the Zerg such an ability. I will send you the analysis report soon. Except that the degree of concealment of his psychic power is a little beyond our imagination, the other overall performance is similar to his previous situation. There must be some concealment and lies in what Whooping said today, but he has already said a lot with enough information, which is enough to show that he and Chen Ming have completely different ideas. And from the fact that he told the news about Chen Ming without hesitation, it can be seen that his sense of belonging to the empire has always been higher than that of Chen Ming. You can try to develop him. The person on the other end of the terminal said, "Okay, you can continue to follow up later to further confirm the relationship between him and Chen Ming. If necessary, you can also contact Chen Ming side by side." Chen Ming encountered too many things after returning to the empire. There is a high probability that he will not be able to change his mind. But Whooping does not seem to be such a person. Don't push him down the wrong path. If someone raises his psyker level, a Zerg fleet of that size would be enough to be considered level 6. In addition, do not use any threats of force, and do not regard killing and Whooping as the final resort. The Zerg race is a hive mind. I suspect that Whooping's consciousness will still exist in the hive mind even if his body dies. Yes. Minister Ho agreed immediately. Suddenly, he seemed to think of something. Just as he was about to speak, he hesitated, and in the end he did not say what he had thought of. At this moment, the doorbell of his room suddenly rang. He immediately connected to the surveillance camera outside the room and found that Whooping had returned to the door. Whooping waved to the surveillance camera at the door and said, "Something suddenly happened. Let's talk more." A voice immediately sounded from the terminal. "No need to hang up." Minister Ho put away the terminal and put it in a private place. He stood up and opened the door of the compartment. "What's wrong?" "Something happened just now. Some Zerg escaped from the control of the Queen and headed towards the territory of the Machine Clan. They didn't expect that what they had just talked about would actually happen so soon." Minister Ho was stunned for a moment. Whooping's previous cooperative attitude made him have almost no doubts at this time. And he immediately asked Chen Ming to go back to the room and sit down, and this time he did not close the door. "Tell me more specifically." Whooping cleared his throat and said, Just now. Whooping received news from Liang Fei and Li Wei that they wanted to talk to Minister Ho. Chen Ming knew that the time had come, so from now on, in addition to continuing to use part of his consciousness to control Whooping and Minister Ho, he also sent part of his consciousness to the black mist prosthesis that was staying on a Zerg warship. At this time, the black mist prosthesis has undergone earth-shaking changes compared to its previous normal human appearance and has turned into a real monster. Although it still has a human form, some of the features that belong to the Zerg and machine races have been irregularly distorted and separated from what looks like a human body. Of course, this is not a real distortion, but Chen Ming deliberately made it look like a failed experiment when designing it. In fact, the function is absolutely fine, it's just a bit ugly. And just after Chen Ming transferred his consciousness to the black mist prosthetic body, the black mist prosthetic immediately released a large amount of black mist, starting from the cruiser he was on and covering more Zerg cruisers around him. Almost 1/3 of the total number of Zerg warships staying in orbit were completely enveloped. Although the Zerg fleet in orbit has been reduced by about half after the Zerg Queen has just formed a slight formation, the number is still terrifying. It can only be said that the Black Mist prosthesis does not have this ability under normal circumstances. However, because there was no place for the Black Mist core to be used for the time being, Chen Ming first stuffed the Black Mist core into the Black Mist prosthesis, and then used his own mental power to dispatch the Black Mist psychic energy. The effect was immediately obvious. And just after the black mist covered 1/3 of the Zerg, a special pheromone suddenly appeared in the black mist, which acted on all the Zerg units. There was some confusion in the Zerg fleet, and then they left the main force and headed towards the edge of the galaxy. It was as if pheromones were guiding them in a certain direction. Of course, Chen Ming is actually in control. It's just that what he needs to show the Zerg fleet now is that the Black Mist prosthesis used special means to control these Zerg and did the next thing. The Insect Queen had already divided the teams just now, leaving a Zerg fleet for the Black Mist prosthesis. What Black Mist wants to do is also very simple, just to make some noise. It is best to make a big movement, something that can be seen by everyone and all the machine races. The Zerg fleet shrouded in black mist soon arrived at the edge of the galaxy, entered hyperspace, and began to move straight in the direction of the Empire. If it doesn't circle around a little, this fleet shrouded in black mist will soon encounter a star area of the mechanical race. Of course, it was not the material-rich nebula area that Chen Ming targeted. It is another star area that belongs to the border, where a large number of defense facilities are deployed in basically all galaxies. As a hard nut to crack, Chen Ming would not fight this place when he was full and would not get enough benefits from defeating or destroying it. But if it is used to attract the attention of both the Empire and the Machine Tribe for the Black Mist prosthesis, then this is a perfect place. After sailing for a distance, the Zerg warships, which were shrouded in a large area of black fog, suddenly started the biological jump engine together. They were divided into several fleets and rushed directly into the star field of the mechanical race. In several star systems at the border of the mechanical race star field, they launched almost suicidal attacks at the same time. While the Black Fog prosthesis was committing suicide, Chen Ming's main consciousness was paying attention to the area that was his main target. The back-of-hand power in this area was much looser than the attack of the Black Fog prosthesis at this time. After all, this is not a border, but an area wrapped and protected by the border. It occupies about 1/3 of one of the 7-star regions divided by the Stargate. There are more than 90 valuable star systems in total, and more than 400 planets with high development value. Just looking at the ratio of valuable star systems and planets, you can see how rich this area is. If it weren't for the fact that the star field of the mechanical race is relatively small and the area of this nebula is not too large, the mechanical race might have more resources. But soon, these rich resources no longer belong to the mechanical race, but to the Zerg. This entire mechanical race's logistics star field was his target, although Chen Ming had just roughly estimated it. At present, the size of his Zerg fleet can only affect about 40 mechanical race planets in more than a dozen star systems at the same time. It's barely acceptable. Anyway, all the star systems here are important to the mechanical race, and all the planets play an important role in the logistics support of the mechanical race. If the logistics base here is destroyed, the power of the mechanical race will inevitably be weakened to a considerable extent. Even if it is not destroyed, as long as the mechanical race is willing to send motherships to clean up the Zerg, it will be a sure win for Chen Ming. Not to mention that there are still some star systems and planets where there are no mechanical races. Zergs can also be deployed. The mechanical race thinks that there are no resources to develop, but in the eyes of the Zerg, the planets themselves are resources. These planets may not have the defense means of the mechanical race. As long as a Zerg is allowed to drill a bug in, it will be unknown what will crawl out after a while. After confirming that the Black Mist had started to engage the defense forces of the mechanical clan, Chen Ming deliberately waited for a while to give the mechanical clan a response and send reinforcements to the border where the Black Mist prosthesis was fighting. After receiving the news of the arrival of the second wave of reinforcements from the Black Mist prosthesis, Chen Ming gave instructions to the Queen. The fleet that had just disappeared near the Hive planet in the orbit of the Hive planet immediately started the jump engine. Countless jump fluctuations appeared in the entire area that was Chen Ming's target. The Zerg fleet, which once again had more than 200,000 cruisers, directly crossed the border and penetrated into the star field of the mechanical clan. It even split into dozens of smaller fleets and attacked different galaxies. Doing so is likely to cause Chen Ming to lose more than 200,000 cruisers again. But anyway, His goal is not to win, but to break through the defense line of the mechanical clan and send the Zerg to the mechanical clan's planet. As long as they can be sent, the loss is no longer a problem. Of course, this combat method is only used now when attacking the border planet. If Chen Ming dared to jump into the really deep area of the mechanical race star field and directly cause trouble to the most important star systems of the mechanical race. If all his Zergs were not killed, they might not be able to touch the planet itself, let alone cause enough damage to the mothership. But at least this tactic that is almost equivalent to killing is still very useful near the border area. Even after the combat power was dispersed, many Zerg fleets were destroyed in space. But it was precisely this dispersed attack method that made the defense forces of the mechanical race's logistics star zone react a little late. The orbital defense facilities of several planets have been breached. And the moment the Zergs on the planets that broke through the orbital defense facilities landed, in a sudden burst of black fog, several guard Zergs wrapped in thick black fog appeared. The mechanical race could only see the guard Zerg for a moment, and then the surging black fog completely enveloped the surrounding environment, covering the Zerg units digging underground. Even though the mechanical race had urgently used the warship's jump capability to deploy units such as demons on many planets within a few hours after Chen Ming's incident, they also modified the working logic of some orbital defense facilities, allowing some facilities to be used for internal defense, in order to avoid the trouble caused by the Zerg going deep underground after landing. But the firepower of these existing ones cannot directly break through the defense formed by the multiple black fogs superimposed together. The surging black fog is like a huge black parasite, injecting its eggs into the mechanical race's planet. Although the mechanical race has been desperate, they still failed to achieve complete protection under Chen Ming's rapid raid just a few hours later. As long as the insects go deep into the depth that the mechanical race cannot handle temporarily under the cover of the black fog, the guards will immediately disappear from the original place and appear on the new battlefield. Continue to cover the next batch of Zerg, break through the defense line of the mechanical race planet, and go deep underground. Although the number of Black Mist mechanical spiritual awakening nerves is limited due to the limitation of the amount of Black Mist spiritual energy, there are only 7 in total, and there are only 7 Black Mist Guard Zergs. Including the Psychic Guard Zergs that Chen Ming made with the scraps of Psychic Spiritual Awakening nerves, there are only 12 in total. At most, they are responsible for the protection of 3 Zerg landing sites at the same time. However, after Chen Ming and the Queen of Zerg specially adjusted the attack rhythm of different star systems, these Guard Zergs were enough. Their combat power is enough to protect the Zerg units to achieve their goals. As long as the eggs can be placed deep underground on the mechanical planet, the rest of the things can be left to the Queen of Zerg, and Chen Ming does not need to worry about anything. However, accidents often come faster than tomorrow. Not to mention that it is not tomorrow yet. On the battlefield where the first Guard Zerg arrived and the battle was about to end, a voice that seemed to be drowning in the deep sea suddenly sounded. Phase Behemoth? When Chen Ming heard the voice of the Phase Beast, he felt his scalp tingling. Because the last time he encountered the Phase Beast was a few hours ago, the Scarlet Dimension and the Phase Space clashed in his consciousness space. Not only did he enjoy a lot of mental torture, but his mental power was almost exhausted, and he has not recovered completely until now. Chen Ming thought that the Phase Beast should not be encountered in a short time after running away, but it has only been a few hours. What happened this time? What is the Phase Beast doing this time? Although the Phase Beast itself may not have any malicious intent, the power of the phase space it represents and the influence that may cause problems in the Scarlet Dimension made Chen Ming not act rashly, but continued to observe gently with the help of the corpses of the Zerg units. After arriving above the area where Chen Ming's Guard Zerg first arrived, the Phase Beast made a sound again, as if calling Chen Ming. Just like last time. And the last communication was quite friendly. This time it should also be possible. Chen Ming's eyes were looking at the area where the battle was almost over. It can only be said that the Zerg fleet in space has been withdrawn to other places, and the remaining Zerg troops on the ground are about to be eliminated by the mechanical race. There is no subsequent combat resource investment on this planet. After all, The interior of this planet that first broke through the defense line of the orbital defense facilities has been injected with Zerg eggs, and the nest has begun to develop. It doesn't matter how the ground is now. So now, when the mechanical race is about to encircle and wipe out the remaining Zerg, it is really difficult for Chen Ming to throw a robot over to contact the phase behemoth. After waiting for a while without receiving a response from Chen Ming, the phase behemoth over the mechanical colony suddenly attacked the mechanical race's buildings with no idea. The mechanical race subconsciously counterattacked the air, but none of them could hit the phase behemoth in the phase space. It can only be said that the existence in the phase space has a unilateral suppression of the normal universe, which is too outrageous. Looking at the phase behemoth rolling on the ground, or looking at the destruction and various traces of destruction caused by the phase behemoth that cannot be observed by normal means, Chen Ming suddenly felt that something was wrong. The traces left by these phase behemoths when they destroyed the mechanical buildings seemed to be a little wrong. Chen Ming saw it this way and felt this way, but if he really wanted to say it, he couldn't tell what was wrong. He continued to observe the traces left by the phase behemoths for a while with doubts, but still couldn't find the place that made him feel wrong. And just as he was thinking, a new question appeared in his mind. How did the phase behemoth follow? Chen Ming recalled the previous encounters with the phase behemoths. The first time, the phase behemoths chased the mechanical fleet all the way, and the second time, they also chased the mechanical family. And this time it seems that it is not for the same reason as before, but chasing Chen Ming. Because the phase behemoth did not attack the mechanical family at the first time, but tried to call him at the first time. Chen Ming thought about it again. The first time does not count, because he had not entered the Scarlet Dimension at that time, and the second time he just encountered the phase behemoth. The phase behemoth was silently destroying the mechanical family, very quietly. It was not until it discovered Chen Ming's existence that it made the sound that seemed to come from the deep sea. It was not until then that Chen Ming heard its voice and began to communicate with it. So, the phase beast should be coming for him this time, and he should try to respond. Chen Ming just wanted to try to throw a robot over. Even if it was directly destroyed by the mechanical race, it would not be a big problem, or find a way to send a robot over from the phase space. But it would be a little more troublesome. Just when Chen Ming decided to use the things he left in the phase space to send the robot to the phase space, and then to the phase beast. The phase beast that was just ravaging the mechanical race's territory suddenly took off, and a jump wave appeared near its body. The next moment, the phase beast disappeared. Question mark. What's going on? Chen Ming thought for a while that he had observed for too long, and the phase beast was impatient and left first. It turned out that the situation did not seem to be what he thought. Just near the location where the phase beast jumped away, a jump wave suddenly appeared again, but no physical object appeared. This is not the return of the phase monsters, but a fleet of cruiser-level phase ships from a new place. This is not right. Chen Ming remembered that the level of phase technology mastered by the mechanical race before was not at this level. The mechanical race definitely does not have enough phase ships to use, let alone cruiser-level phase production capacity. It can't be that they developed it in such a short time. No, there seems to be a special situation. Chen Ming suddenly thought of a possibility. That is, if the mechanical race is simply to target the phase monsters, they can choose to put ordinary cruisers into the phase space and let ordinary cruisers directly attack the phase monsters in the phase space, and they don't have to use phase weapons to attack the phase monsters. The nature of phase weapons is that they can attack the phase space in the normal universe. But since the spaceships in the phase space are already in the phase space, the ordinary weapons used have the properties of the phase space. When attacking the existence in the same space, no special ability is required. All you need to do is send the ordinary cruiser into the phase space. The only problem with doing this is radiation. Spaceships in the phase space cannot dissipate radiation. But as long as the spaceship is sent out of the phase space before the radiation overloads, the problem is also solved, and ordinary ships can be used as temporary phase ships. This is also one of the temporary solutions proposed by several ship research institutes in the Empire that have phase ship research projects, after the Fanchao Institute has developed equipment that can send space stations into the phase space, for the current phase ship cannot be directly put into actual combat. The difficulty of making a perfect phase ship and the difficulty of making facilities that can send physical objects into the phase space are obviously easier in the latter. The Empire has not used it much at present because there is no environment for it to be used. And it should not be a problem for the mechanical family to make similar things, because they just happen to have a suitable environment. Chen Ming guessed that it should be like this, and we will know the details after seeing it. He called up the psychic energy and sent the robot to the phase space of the area where the phase beasts were active just now. He just happened to see the mechanical cruisers that had completed the jump. Chen Ming could confirm it with a little observation. The fact was the same as he guessed. The mechanical cruisers were all ordinary warships, but they had undergone quite obvious modifications. Some modifications that greatly increased the radiation energy capacity and almost paralyzed the radiation energy dissipation system. They were specially used in the current situation where qualified phase ships could not be manufactured to participate in the battle. This is indeed the idea. So the phase beasts should have sensed these temporary phase ships, so they chose to leave. If the mechanical race chose to chase them hard, they would definitely be the unlucky ones. But for them, as long as they drove the phase beasts away, it would be fine. Now they not only have to solve the problem of the phase beasts, but also the problem of being attacked by Chen Ming's fleet. They have no time to chase the phase beasts. Not only was the nebula area where their important materials were deposited attacked by a sudden large-scale Zerg fleet, but the border on the other side was also attacked. The attack near the nebula area happened at the border, and the reinforcements came only after they had already arrived. Many of the mechanical support fleets were deceived by Chen Ming, and they were already unable to deal with the Zerg's troubles. So how could they have the time to track the phase behemoths? For some reason, the mechanical race has not shown any signs of sending out its main battleships, and they are only using the original defense force of the galaxy to fight. Chen Ming's idea has no room for implementation for the time being. But it's okay, whether the mechanical race's mothership comes or not is not a loss for him. He still plans to continue to observe this battlefield from the broad perspective given by psychic energy. Anyway, the phase behemoth must have a destination for its jump. If Chen Ming guessed correctly, the purpose of the phase behemoth's jump should be the galaxy, where he used psychic energy to send the second batch of Guard Zerg. The situation here is similar to the situation near the location where the Guard Zerg first arrived. The Zerg units died even faster. There were no living Zergs here at this time, but Chen Ming could still use the Zerg corpses to hear the call of the phase beast from the sky above this planet. And Chen Ming also heard the phase beast calling him more clearly this time, and there was a hint of pain. The phase beast was injured? Just now? Chen Ming seemed to realize the key. He just felt that there was something wrong with the phase beast's attack. That is, the way the phase beast destroyed the mechanical colony during the attack and the shape of the market left on the ground were wrong. The phase beast is a manta ray-like creature with two huge wings on both sides of its body. After the phase beast appeared this time, it seemed that it had only used the right wing to attack the mechanical race. And from the rare complete traces left, there seemed to be a very obvious gap on the left wing of the phase beast. Chen Ming also immediately moved the cruiser that had observed the mechanical race and sent it to the phase space, and the robot that had not been discovered by the mechanical race to the destination of the phase beast's jump. At the moment when his robot appeared at the destination, the phase beast sensed Chen Ming's presence, and there was a hint of joy in the voice of calling. But Chen Ming was not happy at all, because in addition to seeing the phase beast, he also saw a huge gap on the wings of the phase beast that was bitten by something. The wound had scabbed, but the painful mark would not disappear so quickly. Such marks, and the marks that Chen Ming had just reacted to, just corresponded to the problem of the phase beast's actions. And as long as you look more carefully, you will find that the scars on the wings of the phase beast have the same bite marks as the mouthparts of the phase beast. This phase beast that Chen Ming has met many times was bitten by its own kind, or a larger kind of its own kind. It was attacked by its own kind. But this is not the focus of Chen Ming's attention now, because he saw not only the terrible scars on the phase beast's body, he also saw a large piece of scarlet twisted flesh and blood in the phase beast's mouth. The moment he saw it, Chen Ming knew that this piece of flesh and blood must be related to the Scarlet Dimension, and it was not a piece of flesh formed after a creature was infected by the Scarlet Dimension, but Chen Ming found it hard to believe what he perceived. The piece of flesh and blood in the phase beast's mouth seemed to be the power directly taken from the Scarlet Dimension by some means. After entering the phase space, there was no support from the existence inside the Scarlet Dimension, so it naturally formed this huge piece of flesh and blood. This is not flesh and blood, this is condensed knowledge. The phase beast landed in front of Chen Ming's robot, spit out a large piece of flesh and blood in its mouth on the ground, and pushed it in the direction of Chen Ming's robot. Then it bit the flesh and blood again, tore off a piece, and swallowed it directly. It used the most primitive means to do something that Chen Ming couldn't do easily now, which made Chen Ming stunned. Now he knew why the phase beast kept chasing him. It might be targeting the bloody crack in his brain. It wanted to seize the power of the Scarlet Dimension through the bloody crack. What does it mean now? Hasn't it already got the power of the Scarlet Dimension? What is it doing? Sharing it with him? Chen Ming tried to make the robot happen like last time and added doubtful emotions to the sound it made, trying to ask the phase beast what it meant. But the phase beast just kept making urging sounds and further pushed the remaining meat towards Chen Ming's robot. The language used by the phase beast is obviously not advanced enough to communicate like humans. It is obviously impossible to figure out the purpose of the phase beast's actions and what happened through communication with the phase beast. Then we can only judge it through logic. First of all, judging from the current behavior of the phase beast, they are a kind of creature that feeds on the power of the Scarlet Dimension. The wounds on the giant beast in front of Chen Ming were obviously caused by being bitten by its own kind. That means that it is very likely that the phase beast snatched the scarlet meat from its own kind and shared it with him. Hiss! Wait a minute, isn't this a bit wrong? In the animal world, sharing food should be shared with the same kind in most cases, right? Although it is hard to say whether the phase beast is an animal in the animal world, Chen Ming feels that it should be considered as one. Did the phase beast treat him as one of its own kind? Chen Ming thought about the scales left by the phase beast last time and the traces left by the phase space in his consciousness space, and it seemed that this was not impossible. What does it mean that the phase beast snatched the food of other species and shared it with this same kind? Chen Ming could feel that the phase beast sharing it this time was for some purpose, as if it wanted him to take more power from the Scarlet Dimension. But if the scarlet meat in the air of the phase beast was snatched from other phase beasts, it means that other phase beasts can take the initiative to contact the Scarlet Dimension, and there is no need to look for him. Unless the phase beast is a very ferocious creature. But according to Chen Ming's observation, the phase beast seems to have a deep hostility only towards the mechanical race. Not to mention that the phase beast will share with him. This doesn't make sense. And if the phase beast feeds on the power of the Scarlet Dimension, then the phase beast in front of him doesn't seem to have the ability to tear open a rift to the Scarlet Dimension from the phase space to obtain food. This is another point that doesn't make sense. The more Chen Ming thinks about it, the more confused his brain feels, although his brain is useless. If it really doesn't work, why not do it according to the phase beast's idea first? At least he won't misperceive what the phase beast means now. That is, the phase beast wants to share the scarlet flesh and blood with him. So Chen Ming's main consciousness descended on the robot, and after slightly adjusting the mental power that has recovered well, the robot controlled by Chen Ming stretched out his hand and pressed on the scarlet flesh in front of him. The scarlet crack in Chen Ming's consciousness space opened slightly, helping Chen Ming to absorb the materialized Scarlet Dimension. The whole piece of flesh disappeared in front of Chen Ming in an instant. And Chen Ming also felt the improvement of his ability again. It just seemed a little less obvious. This piece of flesh looked quite large, and it could be held in the mouth of a huge creature with a body length of a kilometer. It was estimated that it was at least tens of meters in length, width, and thickness. But Chen Ming just touched it, and the whole piece of flesh disappeared. Even part of the flesh that the phase beast had not torn off and swallowed completely was transformed into Chen Ming's power by Chen Ming's spiritual energy. The phase beast that bit the air immediately straightened its front half of its body, shook its head, stared at Chen Ming's robot left and right for a long time, and made a puzzled sound. Chen Ming felt that the phase beast did not seem to be wondering why the meat in its mouth was gone, but was wondering about something closely related to him. So what are you wondering about? The phase beast certainly couldn't respond to Chen Ming's question. It just flew up gently like last time, circled Chen Ming a few times, and then flew high again like last time, made a jump, and disappeared in front of Chen Ming. Chen Ming looked at the place where the phase beast disappeared last time and felt a little anxious subconsciously, because he knew that this phase beast must be going to its kind to snatch the scarlet meat again. The last time it snatched, it was torn off an extreme piece of meat from its left wing by its kind. If it goes this time, I'm afraid it will still be injured. Moreover, it was injured for him. If the injury is too serious, what is the phase beast for? Why did it do this? Chen Ming felt that he really had to think of a way. Think of a way to communicate with the phase beast at a deeper level. Chen Ming's idea could not change the fact that the phase beast left. He could only continue to focus on the attack he launched on the mechanical race at this time. At this time, more than an hour had passed since Chen Ming's black fog prosthesis took the lead in launching an attack on the border galaxy of the mechanical race. There is nothing special about the situation on the border. It is just that the black mist prosthesis led a large fleet to carry out the invasion mission. Under normal circumstances, the Zerg fleet will definitely die if it attacks the heavily guarded mechanical clan galaxy. Even if the mothership does not move out, they will basically be wiped out in the end. But the premise is normal. With the black mist prosthesis that Chen Mingyuan continuously provides spiritual power to continuously contribute to this war, the fleet led by the black mist prosthesis even has the momentum to break through the border defense line in one breath and rush directly into the heartland of the mechanical clan. Basically, the Zerg fleet relies on the assistance of the black mist psychic energy. The Zerg can use the outrageous effect of Chen Ming's repair psychic energy, and the fleet that far exceeds the number of the mechanical clan fleet to run over. All the fortifications on all the mechanical clan planets where the black mist passed through were destroyed, and only the wreckage of large areas of mechanical clan colonies remained. In addition, the Zerg fleet also left Zerg eggs on a large number of planets inside and outside the mechanical clan border. When these Zergs hatch, they can further interfere with the mechanical clan. Even if the mechanical race destroyed the Zerg fleet led by the black mist prosthesis, it would not be easy to recapture the planet occupied by the Zerg. During the battle led by the black mist prosthesis, Chen Ming also found that some fleets of unknown origin were wandering around the border galaxies of the mechanical race. These fleets were the Imperial reconnaissance fleets that Chen Ming had been waiting for. They had been hiding in the dark and constantly investigating the intelligence of the mechanical race's star field. It would not take long for them to bring the news of the black mist psychic energy and the black mist Zerg fleet back to the Empire to confirm what Whooping said. While the black mist prosthesis was advancing triumphantly, the war near the nebula area of the mechanical race was still going on. Although the number of Zerg fleets here was more than that brought by the black mist prosthesis, after being divided into dozens of fleets, the number was not enough to crush the mechanical race in a single star field. So the fleet losses in each galaxy were relatively some. However, Chen Ming's goal was only to send the insect eggs to the planet. So after achieving the goal, the fleets that did not lose would immediately go to other galaxies to provide additional help. Such an operation reduced the overall loss of the Zerg fleet and achieved the goal faster. Just when Chen Ming injected all the valuable planets in the 50 galaxies that he targeted as the first batch into Zerg eggs and prepared to continue commanding the fleet to the next batch of target galaxies. The real target of Chen Ming's attack this time, the mechanical family's mothership, finally couldn't hold back. The mechanical family locked the last concentrated location of Chen Ming's fleet. Before the fleet left, a fleet consisting of tens of thousands of mechanical family cruisers led by the mothership appeared in front of Chen Ming's Zerg fleet. The jump wave and its surging aftermath of the fleet's jump almost covered half of the galaxy. According to Chen Ming's speculation, the star field of the mechanical family should have a total of about 30,000 to 40,000 cruisers. In the previous battle, Chen Ming had destroyed tens of thousands of cruisers. This time, the mechanical family took out tens of thousands of cruisers, which was obviously a huge investment. But before the absolute number of Chen Ming's Zerg cruisers crushed, this number was still a little insufficient. Even if Chen Ming couldn't deal with the mechanical family's mothership, at least none of the cruisers that came here could escape. However, Chen Ming soon discovered that the mothership sent by the mechanical family was the first one to clash with the Zerg fleet and was repaired early. The mechanical family seemed to have guessed some of Chen Ming's possible abilities, so they specially sent this mothership to clear out the Zerg fleet. Are they still unwilling to send out the backup forces? Then Chen Ming didn't plan to send away so many Zerg fleets. He was going to use the repair psychic energy to pull the mechanical family's fleet, trying to really defeat the mechanical family's mothership from the front. However, Chen Ming didn't have time to do so. In the center of the assembled Zerg fleet, a Zerg warship suddenly began to melt. They melted like candles and disappeared into space like burnt paper scraps. There were no signs, no traces. But Chen Ming had already reacted to what was going on, and his face was extremely gloomy. This is the Destroyer. Chen Ming had never expected that the mechanical race would use the strongest main force weapon they currently possessed here, against the Zerg that was targeting him. And just now he had not sensed any obvious psychic fluctuations, nor had he seen the existence of any other motherships. And the weapons on the mothership that had been repaired and arrived had not changed at all, and it was not the Destroyer that was used. The real Destroyer was not on the front battlefield. That left only one possibility. That is, the mothership carrying the Destroyer was in the phase space at this time. The nature of the phase space would interfere with psychic fluctuations, the propagation of light, and the radiation system of the spacecraft. But it would not interfere with the jump fluctuations. Under normal circumstances, jumps in the phase space can be sensed in the normal universe. The mechanical race used a tricky method. They used the jump fluctuations of a large number of spacecraft to cover up the jump fluctuations of the Destroyer mothership in the phase space. The Destroyer was hidden in the phase space and sent here with the fleet in the open. Chen Ming did not expect that the mechanical race could send the mothership into the phase space, and even used this ability to attack his Zerg. He did not pay too much attention to the phase space here. At least he did not pay too much attention to the phase space where the Zerg fleet was gathering. In the end, he did not notice it at all, and the Zerg fleet was hit hard in an instant. However, this kind of surprise attack method can basically only be used once. With this experience, Chen Ming will definitely equip any of his fleets with a phase ship or a warning device in the phase space when he moves, and will never give a sneak attack opportunity again. As long as Chen Ming spreads the news that he was attacked by the mechanical race in this way, the Empire will definitely be very vigilant. The Destroyer will not be easily sent to anyone's face without being discovered in the future. The only perfect opportunity for a surprise attack was used by the mechanical race on Chen Ming. So Chen Ming now does not understand why the mechanical race would use this opportunity to attack his Zerg. Would the mechanical clan rather not have a better chance to create greater results against the Empire in the future, and would they target the Zerg now? It seems that there is no problem. Chen Ming thought about it carefully. After all, his Zerg fleet is now attacking the most important logistics galaxy of the mechanical clan. If the logistics galaxy collapses, then there is no need to fight on the front line. If he were in the position of the mechanical clan, he would definitely crush the logistics troubles with lightning speed and minimize the losses. If only other motherships were sent over, Chen Ming might still have a chance, but sending the Destroyer over and even choosing a sneak attack to enter the battle almost guaranteed that there would be no problems with other logistics galaxies. It was an acceptable result. In this case, Chen Ming felt that the Zerg fleet here should not be able to withdraw, and the mechanical clan would never let any of the Zerg go. There was nothing to say. The Zerg was least afraid of death, and Chen Ming was least afraid of changing battle losses. Those cruiser fleets that arrived to cover the Destroyer mothership would inevitably suffer a painful blow from the Zerg. Chen Ming immediately ordered the Zerg fleet to disperse to avoid being affected by the range attack effect of the destructive psychic energy. All the Zerg cruisers no longer performed any self-protection actions. All they had to do next was to fight desperately. The beams of bright green acid plasma cannons and the Zerg's biological tachyon spears flashed on the battlefield. However, the effect this time was not obvious. Not only were the Zerg warships themselves being destroyed and melted, but all the Zerg warships' attack methods melted together when they approached the mechanical fleet. The destroyer can not only release destructive psychic energy remotely, but can even use destruction to build a line of destruction defense near the fleet. Moreover, the Zerg fleet is too vulnerable in front of the main battleships, especially the motherships equipped with the destroyer. Without the main force-level protection capability, it will be easily destroyed. The last time the Zerg fleet was about the same number, and when fighting with the 3 motherships of the mechanical race, it took more than an hour to completely destroy them. And facing the destroyer's attack had no light, no impact, no signs, only the psychic fluctuations hidden in the phase space quietly infecting. There was no counterattack. In the previous encounter, nearly half of the Zerg cruisers disappeared in the universe. In the final exchange of fire, the remaining Zerg fleet only lasted a few minutes before completely losing its combat effectiveness. In the end, the more than 100,000 cruisers only fought off more than 1,000 cruisers of the Mechanical Clan. This was because the Mechanical Clan took the initiative to send some cruisers to block those fish that slipped through the net of the destroyer's psychic energy in order to completely avoid contact between the destroyer and the Zerg fleet, resulting in such losses. The destroyer was not even injured in this battle, and there was no means of attack that could break through the line of destruction. The Zerg fleet was completely annihilated in the process of resistance. And then, all the areas where the Zerg fleet had just been were swept by the destroyer's psychic energy of destruction, from the wreckage of Zerg spacecraft to the invisible cells, all of which were completely wiped out by the destroyer. In the end, not even a trace of the entire Zerg fleet was left. The mechanical race may have guessed something, or they are simply sweeping to prevent Zerg cells from being left behind and finally falling on a planet due to gravity, causing the problem of Zerg disaster to happen again. Fortunately, Chen Ming separated some Zerg cells when the destroyer arrived and scattered them in a wider space. At the same time, he also prepared to arrange some iron atoms in the phase space that were almost impossible to be discovered by the mechanical race to provide him with a vision of the phase space. Unless the mechanical race really swept the entire galaxy and even the phase space thoroughly, it would be impossible to find those scattered ones that continued to provide Chen Ming with a vision of the interior of the galaxy. But in the normal universe, only a very small number of cells scattered by Chen Ming that were far away from the center of the galaxy where the Zerg fleet assembled escaped. This wide-range scan made Chen Ming wonder how much radiation energy capacity the mechanical race's mothership had. As Chen Ming expanded his vision to the phase space, he finally saw the appearance of the mechanical race's destroyer mothership. At first glance, it is no different from an ordinary mothership, except for the distorted and eye-catching appearance of the destroyer's ridge gun head in the center. There seems to be nothing special. However, if you look closely, you will find that this mothership seems to have undergone the same major changes as the temporary phase cruisers that Chen Ming saw. The radiation energy capacity has been greatly increased, the radiation energy dissipation has been greatly reduced, and it has been modified specifically for the phase space. It is not a problem. Whether it is a spaceship or an individual of the mechanical family, it is modular and mass-produced. It is very simple to replace parts. At most, the destroyer can be disassembled and installed on another mothership. At this time, in the phase space, in addition to the mothership, there are dozens of cruisers following the mothership. And at this time, when Chen Ming sent those things that could provide him with vision to the phase space, several cruisers suddenly docked with the mothership, as if they were exchanging some equipment. Just after the exchange was completed, the cruiser that exchanged the equipment immediately jumped again and disappeared here. Chen Ming understood the situation at a glance. The docking and equipment exchange just now was the mothership exchanging its coils full of radiation energy with the cruiser's coils without radiation energy, and then letting the cruiser send the radiation energy coils away and out of the normal universe. Radiation energy exists in all electronic circuits of the spacecraft under normal circumstances. The length of the electronic circuit and the capacity of the current determine the capacity of radiation energy. The spacecraft can choose to increase the total amount of radiation energy capacity by carrying additional radiation energy coils. Radiation energy coils have become an additional equipment that most spacecraft must carry. Such equipment cannot be unloaded at will, of course. Under normal circumstances, if there is more than 10% of the total capacity of radiation energy in the electronic system and radiation energy coil of the spacecraft, then if the coil is unloaded directly before the radiation energy is dissipated, it may cause radiation energy to explode at the disconnected position of the line, causing the disconnected part to melt and explode. However, there is a special property of phase space that prevents radiation energy from being dissipated and unable to develop towards normal conditions. So there is no problem caused by unloading equipment that stores a large amount of radiation energy under normal circumstances. This gave the mechanical family a special opportunity, so they prepared extra cruisers to use as extra coils for the mothership. These coils are radiation capacity batteries, which can be replaced at any time when they are full. The more cruisers you bring, the longer the mothership can stay in the phase space. This is the technology that the mechanical family has further extended on the basis of the temporary phase ship. It is not quite appropriate to call it technology. This should be regarded as a skill that uses the objective laws that already exist. It is an excellent and special temporary replacement design. Therefore, this destroyer mothership can still have the remaining radiation capacity to further sweep the entire galaxy after destroying all of Chen Ming's Zerg fleets. The probability of contacting the Zerg cells and iron atoms left by Chen Ming is reduced to a minimum. The destroyer mothership exchanged coils with other cruisers, allowing its radiation level to return to an acceptable level again. The destroyer mothership then began to patrol the galaxy in the phase space. Chen Ming thought that the destroyer mothership might be contaminated by those cells or atoms when patrolling. But in the end, the destroyer mothership still did not approach those rare places where Zerg cells or iron atoms remained. Chen Ming could not actively move these cells and atoms to get close to them. His cells and atoms were fine if they did not move. But if they moved, this mothership equipped with psychic main weapons would definitely find them. It would be better to stay there and wait for the opportunity. Wait for the unlucky ones to get close to them. Anyway, cells and atoms will be left wherever the Zerg fleet passes. As long as you get a little bit of it, it is equivalent to being marked by Chen Ming. Even if Chen Ming's attacks were fruitless, sooner or later he would be able to rely on the accumulation of Zerg corpses to create a way to completely control the mechanical race. The destroyer mothership did not stay in the galaxy where the Zerg fleet gathered for too long, and once again started the jump engine. The warship's jump engine is more effective than the cruisers and can perform several jumps in a short period of time. Of course, it is still limited and cannot compare with Chen Ming's repair psychic ability. And the location of the mothership's jump this time is, of course, another place where Chen Ming attacked the mechanical race at this time. That border star field. As the destroyer arrived at the phase space of the mechanical race's border galaxy, the Zerg fleet led by the Black Mist prosthesis still chose to rush forward, but the Black Mist prosthesis on one of the Zerg warships immediately chose to retreat. The Black Mist prosthesis is used to attract attention. Once the attention is attracted, the mission is completed. There is no need to stay here and fight the mechanical race's destroyer head-on. That is simply not possible. The mothership carrying the destroyer started the destroyer again without any hesitation when it arrived. Even the Zerg fleet wrapped in thick black fog for protection could not hold out for even half a second under the influence of the destroyer. The Black Mist prosthesis is impossible to compete with the main weapons of the warship. Even with Chen Ming's support, it won't work. If he hesitated a little, the fate of the Black Fog prosthesis would be exactly the same as those disappearing Zerg warships. If Chen Ming was in excellent condition and tried to fight with his psychic power, he might be able to hold on for a while. But Chen Ming's mental state is not very good now. He was slowly recovering from exhaustion, and he was still using the black fog transformed from mental power to do things. It is impossible to bear it, and there is no need to resist it. So when the destroyer started again and cleared the Zerg here, in addition to letting the black fog prosthesis retreat, Chen Ming also immediately divided the Zerg fleet covered by the black fog into several groups. Except for a group that stayed to continue to destroy the local mechanical colonies and various facilities, all other Zerg fleets immediately jumped. Some jumped further to the direction closer to the Empire, relying on the last chance to attack more mechanical planets. The other part jumped to the vicinity of some unowned planets bordering the mechanical universe, leaving insect eggs in areas where the mechanical race had no jurisdiction, so as to facilitate a comeback in the future. This was Chen Ming's purpose, and Chen Ming wanted to let the mechanical race and the Imperial reconnaissance fleet that was still observing the battlefield see this scene clearly. In addition to letting the Zerg fleet do this, he did not let the fleet led by the Black Mist prosthesis jump to the nebula area to take advantage of the opportunity of the destroyer mothership to eliminate the cruisers led by another mechanical race mothership that Chen Ming had met before. Although this was a good opportunity to destroy the backbone of the mechanical race, after all, there were still Imperial reconnaissance ships watching the movements of the Black Mist Zerg fleet. And there were no Imperial ships in the nebula area. If Chen Ming chose to jump the Zerg fleet on the border to the nebula area, it would be very likely that the Empire would discover what Chen Ming was doing in a short time. If the matter in the nebula area was exposed, the relationship between Chen Ming and Whooping would be a little unclear and troublesome. Of course, it is not impossible to explain it if you insist, but it is better not to do it if you can avoid unnecessary trouble. The mission of the Zerg fleet is to fight to death. Death under the attack of the destroyer is at least a waste of the destroyer's service life. There is no need to do more things that will lead to some negative effects. The Black Mist Zerg fleet scattered, and the overall combat power was immediately weakened. The destroyer didn't even need to do anything else. The three motherships that had contact with the Zerg fleet and had finished supplying suddenly appeared near the largest number of Zerg fleets after they were scattered with a fleet each, and began to encircle and suppress them. The destroyer mothership also continued to repeat what it had just done, cleaning up all the wreckage of the Zerg fleet. Soon after, the Black Mist Zerg fleet was almost completely destroyed, and this border area was once again completely controlled by the Mechanic clan. But both the Mechanic clan and the Empire's reconnaissance fleet knew that these Zerg fleets, shrouded in black fog, still had many seeds left, and they stayed in nearby galaxies. The Empire's reconnaissance fleet quietly disappeared after the war. However, the destroyer mothership of the mechanical race still did not stop. After replacing the radiation coil again, it started the jump engine again and returned to the galaxies in the nebula area that had been invaded by the Zerg. This time, the destroyer aimed its cannon at the planets invaded by the Zerg. Chen Ming immediately realized what the destroyer mothership wanted to do. But before he could respond, the destroyer had already started, and the destructive psychic energy started from the precise point where the Zerg nest invaded underground and acted on the planet. The earth of the planet was melting, and the collapsed Zerg nest passage was also revealing. The destroyer mothership of the mechanical race had no mercy and compassion, constantly expanding the scope of the destroyer's action and constantly sending the destroyer's psychic energy deep into the ground. The planetary structure in this area was collapsing under the action of destruction, and from outside the planet, one could directly see a cone-shaped gap on the surface of the planet that was still expanding. The underground Zerg nest gradually appeared within the sensor scanning range of the destroyer mothership. The destroyer immediately increased the output power again. In an instant, the entire hive was completely wiped out. Of course, along with the hive, the planetary structure in this area was also wiped out, as well as a large number of mechanical buildings that were not destroyed by the hive, but were now destroyed by the destroyer. Even after destroying the hive, it still did not stop and continued to annihilate everything deep underground in a spherical range with the hive as the core. Some Zerg that had just escaped were also completely killed by the subsequent destroyer attacks. The destroyer chose to directly wipe out part of the planet parasitized by the Zerg. In exchange for the horrible consumption and loss, the rest of the planet can still be used. After destroying the hive on this planet, the destroyer did not immediately continue to go to the next Zerg parasitized planet. It seems that its jump engine can't bear it. It did not jump again, but stayed in place, as if it was ready to leave the phase space and move through hyperspace. This will buy time for Chen Ming to transfer the Zerg. But things obviously won't go so smoothly. A fleet of hundreds of pure cruisers suddenly jumped here. After a short maintenance, hundreds of cruisers started the jump engine again at the same time. The jump engine's linkage effect can take away things that are not larger than itself or other spacecraft. Although the mass of the battleship is far greater than that of the cruiser, it can still be carried away by the joint action of hundreds of cruisers. The jump engines of hundreds of cruisers brought the destroyer mothership to the next galaxy invaded by the Zerg. Starting the jump engine multiple times in a short period of time will cause serious damage to the engine, but the mechanical race obviously doesn't care about these losses. If the Zerg are not dealt with as soon as possible, their losses will only become more and more serious. And when this galaxy is destroyed, I am afraid that the next batch of mechanical cruisers will arrive soon and continue to send the destroyer to the next galaxy. Even if the mechanical race does not have enough cruisers, as long as the destroyers are replaced on a new mothership, the new destroyer mothership will completely destroy the nests on all the planets invaded by the Zerg. Chen Ming has fully realized the seriousness of the problem and immediately asked all the Zerg that invaded the mechanical race planet to migrate to other places on the planet. Whether going deeper underground, hiding in the underground of other mechanical race colonies, or farther away, as long as they can avoid the attack of the destroyer, it doesn't matter where they go. But the mechanical race motherships are completely merciless, and there is no word of mercy in their dictionary. As long as there is a planet where the Zerg has parasitized, whether it is successful or not, as long as it is the location where the Zerg warships fell, whether there is a mechanical race colony here, no matter how valuable the resources are, they will be destroyed by this destructive aura. Chen Ming can only let most of the Zerg go to a location close to the core of the planet and develop under terrible pressure and gravity, and even in the core of some planets, there is an extremely high-temperature environment. The efficiency progress is slower than in the shallow places, but it is better than being killed by the destroyer. However, Chen Ming still underestimated the determination of the mechanical race. The destroyer did temporarily ignore those planets where the insect nests were not found. That is, the insect nests hid in places where they could not be found. But when the destroyer went to all the other planets where the insect nests were found, it returned to the planets where the insect nests were not found. The mechanical race on these planets had been packing up since just now. When the destroyer arrived, all the mechanical races took off with all the buildings and materials that could be evacuated in a short time. The destroyer directly acted on the center of the Earth of this planet, destroying the center of the Earth. It is equivalent to directly destroying everything on this planet. When Chen Ming's Zerg fleet set off, it chose 50 valuable star systems, with a total of 73 valuable planets. Each of these 73 planets was injected with insect eggs. In the end, a total of 8 planets where the Zerg were not found were completely destroyed by the destroyer, which was almost 1/10 of the total number. All the remaining planets that were invaded by the Zerg and still survived the baptism of the destroyer began to conduct extremely strict internal monitoring. As long as the Zerg eggs were found, the destroyer would be summoned again for cleansing. This is how the mechanoids fight the Zerg. The mechanical race did a lot. The appearance of the destroyer and the ruthless sweep of the mechanical race's own planet made Chen Ming feel quite surprised. They did make sure that all the Zerg on the planets that Chen Ming's Zerg invaded were cleared, and the planets where the Zerg was not found were completely destroyed. The mechanical race would not gamble on the probability that the Zerg did not successfully parasitize. But they did not do enough. After Chen Ming discovered the movements of the mechanical race's destroyer, in addition to letting the Zerg nests start migrating immediately, he also let all the Zerg nests that had just begun to breed separate apart of the Zerg units to flee. As long as a seed or an egg is left, the entire Zerg nest can develop again. Therefore, even if the destroyer has cleared the Zerg nests on all planets, not all the Zerg on all planets have been killed. There are still Zerg hiding on more than 40 planets, and a small number of eggs are still alive. Chen Ming still has a chance, but it just takes more time than before. It can only be said that the mechanical race took out the destroyer and destroyed several of its own planets very ruthlessly, which was a smart move. After all, if the destroyer was not there, Chen Ming dared to guarantee that in just 2 days, he could make those Zerg's parasitic underground come out to cause trouble. The difficulty of invading a planet from space is completely different from that of causing trouble on the ground. The logistics of the mechanical race will be completely destroyed in a very short time. But now that the Zerg has been cleaned up by the destroyer, Chen Ming will never dispatch the Zerg before the Zerg develops to a certain scale, so as not to attract the destroyer again and stimulate the Zerg again. There is no Zerg of a certain scale that can cause damage to the ground facilities of the mechanical race, but nothing can be done in front of the destroyer. Appearing in advance will lead to less damage to the mechanical race in the end. So even if the mechanical race cannot completely solve the problem of the Zerg by doing this, it can at least delay it for a few more days. Give the mechanical race a chance to mine a wave of materials for the last time, and a few more days to study the technology that may eliminate the Zerg still hiding in the ground. Chen Ming really has no way to solve the current situation of limited Zerg movement. The destroyer could come again at any time, making any action basically a waste of effort. But in fact, he didn't need to solve it, because Chen Ming did another thing at the same time as the Zerg fleet attacked. In Chen Ming's cognition, the entire universe is very rich. Not only are there planets with a large number of exploitable resources, but there are even habitable planets that far exceed Chen Ming's previous cognition. However, no matter how rich a place is, there must be barren corners. Near those rich planets, there are also many planets that have no development value. Of course, this development value is for living or non-living things other than Zerg. For the Zerg, as long as there is material, the planet is valuable. These planets that are worthless to the mechanical race will not be occupied by the mechanical race, which gives Chen Ming the opportunity to infiltrate. Therefore, although the 3 waves of Zerg fleets sent by Chen Ming are all targets of the mechanical race, which are being developed or stationed, but every Zerg fleet will be dropped some eggs by the Zerg on the planets that have no development value for the mechanical race, just like what the Black Mist prosthesis did when it encountered the destroyer. And this is another thing Chen Ming did. Even if the Zerg on every planet in the logistics galaxies of the mechanical clan have been cleared, there are still a large number of planets with Zerg, threatening the safety of the mechanical clan at any time. Chen Ming didn't know whether the mechanical clan had noticed or reacted to this. He felt that they should have noticed it, but it did not affect the growth of the Zerg eggs on those worthless planets. The mechanical clan has the ability to protect those planets with resource development, but they definitely do not have the ability to protect every planet. If every planet with Zerg is really swept, especially those barren planets that have no detection means to confirm the location of the Zerg eggs, then even if the destroyer is used to smoke, it may not be cleaned up. This is the most disgusting thing about Chen Ming's Zerg. Chen Ming will even discuss the mechanical clan again later. At this time, Chen Ming is still observing the destroyer mothership inside the galaxy through some iron atoms remaining in the phase space of the last processed galaxy reached by the destroyer. This mothership cannot stay in the phase space forever. Sooner or later, it will return to the normal universe and will always stay somewhere. Its radiation coil can be replaced, but not all facilities can be replaced. It must be inspected. Chen Ming just watched the destroyer mothership silently. Finally, after the mothership dealt with the last planet where no hive was found, it started the jump engine. When the spaceship in the phase space starts the jump engine, it can also take away the spaceship in the normal universe. So this mothership also took away the mechanical race who chose to migrate with a large number of facilities and materials because the planet was destroyed in the galaxy. Only the remains of the destroyed planet were left in the galaxy. Chen Ming immediately activated his psychic power, allowing the iron atoms that were originally keeping a distance from the mothership to approach the location where the destroyer mothership jumped. Immediately created equipment to record the detailed jump fluctuation data of the mothership when it left, and confirmed the coordinates of the destination of the destroyer through this data. It was almost the same as he thought, that is, the Stargate in the star area of the mechanical race. It has to be said that the mechanical race is really rich. The Empire can only ensure that there is at least one Stargate in a star field, while the mechanical race has installed Stargates in every star area in such a small star field. Although the startup cost of the Stargate is calculated based on the distance between the 2 Stargates, the value of the Stargate itself is there, especially the singularity that can only be obtained through natural wormholes. That is the most important thing. Chen Ming actually has some or quite a lot of ideas about the Stargate, but it is not the time yet. Now, Chen Ming chose to let the Queen of the Worms squeeze out about 1,000 Zerg cruisers, and then let each Zerg cruiser lock a star system inside the mechanical ray star field. The locked star systems are all star systems that it believes that the mechanical race's defense force is relatively empty, or even a star system without defense force. Because most of these star systems are barren planets with no development value. Among the 1,000 Zerg cruisers, only a very small number of cruisers will target some valuable star systems, and these cruisers with different targets are actually baits to mislead the mechanical race. The reason is the same as before. Chen Ming did not plan to let the fleet jump to those important planet star systems of the mechanical race because there are definitely a large number of heavy troops guarding these places. Going there is to seek death, and there is no guarantee that the planets will not be touched. So what the Zerg have to do is very clear, that is, to drop insect eggs on those barren planets. The mechanical race may not necessarily protect barren planets specifically. Who would be so bored as to guard those planets that have no development value at all? Therefore, even if it is just a single cruiser, there is a possibility that it will arrive on the surface of the planet under the siege of the mechanical race and leave insect eggs. Of course, the premise is that the cruiser's target cannot be the star systems developed by the mechanical race. Although there is no special protection, it does not mean there is no protection. Even for some planets that have no development value, the mechanical race will at least build a monitoring system covering the entire galaxy inside the galaxy, which is enough to detect the invasion of the Zerg cruiser and send a fleet to deal with it. The mechanical race will soon discover the further actions taken by Chen Ming to allow more Zerg to infiltrate the mechanical race's star field. But the mechanical race has no ability to stop it. They can't handle the planets with no development value in the logistics galaxy alone, let alone the galaxy planets that Chen Ming randomly selected. Of course, these cruisers that are about to set off can be said to be dead. It is worthwhile to use 1,000 cruisers to exchange for more information about the mechanical race's star field being parasitized by the Zerg. But Chen Ming's actual purpose in doing this is not for these Zerg cruisers and the planets they are about to parasitize. He thought that the reason for doing this was not because of the matter itself. He didn't even pay full attention to all these cruisers that were about to set off again to confirm whether they could successfully parasitize later. He only paid attention to one of the Zerg cruisers. The destination of this cruiser is even a galaxy with a high degree of development of the mechanical race. That is, the galaxy where the mechanical race Stargate is located, where the mechanical race's destroyer mothership just jumped to. It doesn't take too long to prepare. After all the Zerg cruisers have determined their targets, the jump begins. In just a dozen seconds, thousands of Zerg cruisers appeared in thousands of different galaxies, approaching the nearest non-gas planet. This time, the number of Zerg fleets affected far exceeded that of the previous ones. Although there was only one cruiser in each galaxy, it was natural. It triggered the mechanical race's reaction system and attracted the encirclement of the nearby mechanical race fleet. But before the mechanical race fleet destroyed Chen Ming's Zerg spacecraft, the Zerg spacecraft had enough time to inject the eggs into those barren planets. Those Zerg spacecraft that went to the galaxies developed by the mechanical race were of course surrounded by the mechanical race fleet at the first time. Only one ship relied on luck to temporarily escape the mechanical race and successfully laid eggs on a planet. As for the ship that jumped to the mechanical Stargate, according to the Empire's division of mechanical star zones, it should be considered a Zerg cruiser of the number 7 Stargate system. It was attacked by the destroyer at the moment the jump ended. The jump fluctuation appears at the starting point and the end point at the same time when the jump engine is started, so Chen Ming is not surprised that the mechanical race reacted so quickly. Anyway, his goal has been achieved. Just before the Zerg cruiser that Chen Ming was concerned about was destroyed, he saw that the Stargate in the system was not started, and there was no sign of starting at all. And the destroyer mothership seemed to have left the phase space through the phase facility here. At this time, it was in the orbit of a planet, ready to land at any time. It was only because of the Zerg cruiser that it turned its gun bow and attacked the Zerg warship. These are the proofs that the destroyer will stay here in the future. Although Chen Ming had previously speculated that the destroyer might stay here because of the Zerg, but he couldn't be 100% sure. After all, the strategic value of the destroyer is also quite obvious. Obviously, it has more and better places to realize its value. However, with the arrival of this Zerg spaceship, Chen Ming was completely sure of his idea, and he had the opportunity to try to seize this destroyer. Chen Ming gradually became a little excited, but he immediately poured cold water on himself. The number of Zerg fleets left in his hands was not much. There were many large-scale battles in a short period of time, and each time there was a huge loss. The Queen of Zerg had developed long enough on the abandoned Zerg nest planet to be able to fight until now. But no matter what, the original resources of the Zerg had been consumed, and there were not many left, which was not enough to support Chen Ming to continue to make trouble on the mechanical territory. After the excitement, the rest should be done. At least now he has to wait until the Zerg develops again. This time, Chen Ming only has a Zerg nest planet and a Zerg fleet of about 500,000 cruisers, which gives Chen Ming the confidence to fight the main battleship with cruisers. And the next time Chen Ming arrives at the mechanical star field with a fleet, it will definitely not be that small. With the breeding efficiency of the Zerg, it won't take long for Chen Ming to build a more terrifying and powerful fleet again. He still has a chance later. The destroyer should not move again. Only by ensuring logistics can they persist in the war. For Chen Ming, as long as the mechanical race is willing to ensure logistics, he still has the possibility of seizing the destroyer. But Chen Ming still has a question that he still doesn't understand after fighting several high-intensity battles with the mechanical race. Where are the external reinforcements of the mechanical race? Chen Ming's question was of course not answered. However, when the number of his Zerg fleet increases later, he may try to use a large number of Zerg spacecraft to carpet jump to confirm. For now, forget it. And while he is busy fighting wits and courage with the mechanical race, at this time, he is at Whooping's side in the Odin Star field. Minister Ho also roughly listened to Whooping's story about the Black Fog prosthesis seizing some Zerg units and attacking the mechanical race. Of course, what Whooping said was definitely different from what Chen Ming actually did, and there were quite a lot of concealments. But basically, the key point in Whooping's words was that an unknown existence shrouded in black fog appeared. In addition to knowing Whooping, Minister Ho also knew Chen Ming's intelligence. So when he heard the keyword black fog, he confirmed, "Are you sure it's black fog? When did it appear?" And Whooping replied, "It was a very thick black fog. Just now, not long after I entered this room, something suddenly emerged from the shadows wrapped in black fog. I don't know what it is, but it's probably humanoid." After the thing in the black fog jumped out, he immediately released more black fog to cover my Zergs. All those Zergs were affected by the black fog and were out of the control of the Queen. Black fog. There was once a black fog psychic known to many people as a member of Zhujiang who assassinated Chen Ming and Baikuan who was with Chen Ming. At that time, it was said that the black mist psychic was killed on the spot by Chen Ming and no body was left. However, although there was no body at that time, there was evidence from Baikuan, so it was recorded according to this statement. But now, when Minister Ho heard Whooping talking about the black fog that appeared, he subconsciously wondered whether this black fog would be related to Chen Ming. Of course, this was just his subconscious thought, and he soon completely ruled it out. Zhujiang's brainwashing ability is obvious to all. Even the recognized psychic with strong consciousness can be brainwashed, and it is impossible for the black mist psychic to switch to Chen Ming's side. Not to mention that the brainwashed psychic was not dead when the black mist psychic assassinated him. He didn't think that Chen Ming would specifically spare the life of a psychic who assassinated him and Baikuan. Moreover, Zhujiang also has the psychic Qianmian, who has the ability to imitate the psychic effects of others and transform the psychic effects into the heart-gathering spirit pearl for others to use. He was also a troublesome guy and died at the hands of Whooping in the end. It is because of his existence that Black Mist's heart-gathering spirit pearl is likely to be lost and driven by others. And now Minister Ho only heard the word Black Mist from Whooping. There are psychics with psychic effects similar to Black Mist, and they are not necessarily from Zhujiang, and it is even less likely that they are the Black Mist psychic at the beginning. It's just that Black Mist's sudden appearance really makes it hard not to suspect something related to Zhuijing. As far as Minister Ho knows, Zhuijing has not been completely dealt with in history. The Empire has tried to clean up Zhuijing elements more than once at a great cost throughout the Empire, and it has not been successful. But as long as a few years or more than 10 years have passed, Zhuijing will jump out again. This time, the brainwashed psychic of Zhuijing was killed, and a large number of Zhuijing elements surrendered after the brainwashing. So many people believe that the source of Zhuijing's psychic power has been erased, and Zhuijing is finished. But will Zhuijing not die out again? Minister Ho thought of a lot of things in an instant, but these were just his personal thoughts. Unless he obtained more evidence, he would not reveal these thoughts at all. Minister Ho continued to ask in whooping, "Then how are your Zerg controlled? Are they psychers?" "It should be a psyker or some kind of psychic creature, but it's not my bug controlled by psychic powers. There is a kind of pheromone specifically targeted at the Zerg in those black fogs that can interfere with the Zerg's judgment and guide the Zerg. My insect queen has obtained the pheromone sample, and I can send it back to the Empire as soon as possible." Minister Ho nodded slightly, and just as he was about to continue saying something, another voice suddenly sounded from him. "Contact Chen Ming directly and ask Chen Ming to deliver it. He has the means." Minister Ho was stunned for a moment, took out the terminal from the inner pocket of his clothes, and placed it on the table between him and Whooping. And Whooping stretched out his hand and pointed slightly at the terminal on the table and asked, "This is?" A voice immediately rang out from the terminal. "Hello, and Whooping. I am the superior of Minister Ho Xianho and the Minister of the Empire's Psyker Population Management Department, Lu Han." When he heard this, Chen Ming immediately remembered the website Psychic Census Network that he had used several times before. It was a website affiliated with this department. Although this Lu Han said that he was a minister, there was obviously a big difference in level between him and Minister Ho. One is a minister at the star level, and the one at the other end of the terminal is an Empire-level minister. "Minister Lu, hello? Hello? Do you want me to go directly to Chen Ming?" "Yes, if you don't mind. You can ask us a few more questions." Although Minister Lu's words were inquiring, there was quite a command element in his tone. And Whooping frowned subconsciously. Minister Ho next to him noticed this and said quickly, "It's troublesome." He and Whooping were chatting happily, but why did the boss suddenly come over to cause trouble? And Whooping didn't say much when he saw this, and took out the terminal in front of the two of them. Of course, Chen Ming would not be idle at this time. Before he arranged for Whooping to do things, he knew that someone would come to contact him and confirm with him what was going on outside. So before Whooping finished chatting with Minister Ho, Chen Ming had already decided to contact Bai Quan. When Bai Quan answered Chen Ming's call again, Bai Quan's tone of voice was a little nervous. "Is something wrong again?" Chen Ming has been calling him recently about something, and it's not a trivial matter. Bai Quan's scalp was also a little numb, especially since he was about to return to the front line. There were a lot of things going on recently, but he didn't dare not answer Chen Ming's call. What if there was something important? Chen Ming immediately said, "This time it's not a big deal. It's just that I discovered that the Zerg have made new moves." Some insects wrapped in black mist suddenly attacked the mechanical tribe. Although it seemed that they were all killed by the machine tribe in the end, and there were traces of the destroyers suspected to be from the machine tribe, those black fog bugs still left a lot of eggs on nearby planets, and it seems that the machine tribe still can't clean them away. I sent a few ships to try to make contact with the black mist, but the things in the black mist didn't seem to want to contact me, so they demolished all my ships. But I also took the opportunity to take a picture of the thing inside the black mist," Chen Ming said, and sent Bai Quan a photo of the ugly appearance of the black mist prosthetic that combined humans, insects, and machines. "I suspect that this is a human experiment done by Zhuijing or the machine clan themselves. Zhuijing often conducts human experiments. The machine clan also has a history of transforming living things into machines, so..." "Wait a moment." Before Chen Ming finished speaking, Bai Quan suddenly interrupted. "Don't rush to talk nonsense. I'll talk to you first." "You say? Do you remember that I watched you send the Black Mist Psyker into the dormant chamber before? This man looks very similar to the Black Mist Psyker." All this. Chen Ming was embarrassed for a moment. He hadn't thought of it at first, but when Bai Quan mentioned it, He immediately recalled the assassination by the Black Mist Psyker. But at that time, Bai Quan had only seen the Black Mist Psychic once at most, and the Black Mist prosthesis was deliberately made ugly by Chen Ming, leaving only a few identity details that could only be seen if you look closely. Can Bai Quan remember clearly after such a long time? I'm afraid I'm not deceiving him. So he looked at the photo he sent several times and said stubbornly, "It doesn't look like it." Bai Quan was not disturbed by Chen Ming and said with conviction, "What are you going to do? I don't want to see you doing the same thing as Zhuijing. A person's bottom line will gradually decrease. Don't cross that point. Line." Bai Quan's tone was very serious, and Chen Ming could no longer answer casually. He said seriously, "I have a clear conscience in everything I do, and I will only use the appropriate means on the right people. I will not do anything harmful to the Empire and the Legion. Even what I am doing is absolutely beneficial to both the Empire and the Legion. I just don't want the Empire to find out more about me. That would be of no benefit to anyone." Bai Quan was silent for a while, sighed, and chose to believe Chen Ming. "So this thing that is neither human nor ghost. It's just a little experiment between me and Whooping. It was indeed done with the Black Mist Psyker. Kill it first, and then experiment. There are two purposes. One is to attract the attention of the Empire and the mechanical clan. The other is to tell the Empire about the existence of Zhuijing." When Bai Quan heard this, he immediately realized that he seemed to have run into a big problem again. He asked, "What do you mean? Didn't Zhuijing's brainwashed psychic die?" Although Bai Quan was not involved in the matters in Camo Star territory at all. But the matter in the Camo Star territory was so big. Many important members of the Ludzwa path died, and the Zwa path collapsed completely. He had heard of it at least. Of course, he also knew about Whooping. And after he told Chen Ming the information he had given before and received feedback, he already knew the connection between Chen Ming and Whooping and the Zerg. Therefore, he was not surprised that Chen Ming and Whooping cooperated. He was not even surprised that Chen Ming took the initiative to betray Whooping's information. Because obviously this was a means that Chen Ming and Whooping had agreed upon to achieve their goals. But he was still surprised by the news about Zhuijing. Especially the most important person in Zhuijing, the brainwashing psyker. Bai Quan was even more impressed. The death of such a person is basically equivalent to a death sentence for Zhuijing, but now Chen Ming told him that he was doing things to find out Zhuijing, which obviously meant that Zhuijing still existed and was lurking in the Empire. It even requires psychics like Chen Ming and Whooping to personally sort out these matters related to Zhuijing. This made Bai Quan somewhat confused as to why. Chen Ming could only say, "Brainwashed psychics are not that easy to die. Zhuijing has been around for so many years. The Empire has just started to take steps into the universe. It can't be that Zhuijing can find a brainwashed psyker every 100 years, right?" Bai Quan was very familiar with Zhuijing's topic and said, "This statement has been mentioned a long time ago, but Zhuijing did not have such a strong influence in the past. Only in the early days when the Empire entered the cosmic era, the development of the left path was a little faster. In the subsequent pioneering era, the left path was at best disgusting in all corners. It wasn't until the years after the end of the pioneering era that the left path began to emerge again. According to this time, if more mechanical organ transplants are carried out and the brains of psychers are strong enough, the earliest brainwashed psycher is it's possible to survive until now." And Whooping didn't leave any corpses before, and he didn't say he saw what the brainwashed psyker looked like. It's true that he couldn't see the brainwashed psyker after he turned into a monster. In addition, after the death of the psychers Zhuijing, many people who were brainwashed, especially many people in many local governments and the military who were brainwashed by Zhuijing, voluntarily surrendered, so it was basically regarded as a brainwashed psychic by default. The person is dead enough to see it. How are you sure Zhuijing is still alive? Bai Quan obviously has a very deep understanding of Zhuijing's history, and there are basically no problems in his words. But Chen Ming still believed what he saw with his own eyes. "I'm not sure. It's Whooping who is sure." He said that when he was fighting against the brainwashed psyker in Zhuijia, he sensed part of the psyker's memory due to the fusion of mental power. He discovered that there was something wrong with the memory of the brainwashed psyker. It was implanted by someone. Someone implanted the memory of the brainwashed psyker into him, making him think that he was the brainwashed psyker from Zhuojia. Chen Ming combined the appearance of the brainwashed psyker in Qianmin Mian's memory with the news that he finally saw the brainwashed psyker's head and confirmed that the dead brainwashed psyker was different from Zhuojing's real brainwashed psyker. Take it out. Bai Quan didn't know much about spiritual things, so he asked, "Is this useful? The spiritual nerves are all different. How can they have the same ability?" And Wuping said yes. He said that after any psionic person loses his original memory and experiences life again through false memories, his spiritual nerves will also change along with the false memories. You trust him so much. Because he showed me something that proved it. Bai Quan did not ask what An Wuping showed to Chen Ming or how he showed it to Chen Ming. Thinking about the Black Mist psyker who became extremely deformed in the Black Mist but could control hundreds of thousands of Zerg cruisers, he could probably guess that An Wuping must have some important biotechnology in his hands. Perhaps some kind of neural connection technology could allow An Wuping to share some memories with Chen Ming or something. In his opinion, only in this way could Chen Ming believe in Wuping. Who is that? Chen Ming said in a very helpless tone. God knows. And Wuping said that he only saw a moment's memory, and he roughly remembered what it looked like. If he could see it and recognize it, it wouldn't be enough. I also tried using software that draws pictures based on descriptions, but it was not very good. I couldn't draw the effect that An Wuping said or the precise appearance of the person. But I'm basically certain that there is that person. Bai Quan thought about it seriously and said, "If we can't create this person, I feel like I have to go." "Don't." Chen Ming interrupted directly. "There is a reason why An Wuping didn't publicly announce this news before. The Empire has no way to eradicate Zhuojing. The problem is that Zhuojing is well hidden. He may even be hiding in a high position in the Empire. A brainwashed psyker can be hidden anywhere. Of course, the one at the top is definitely not the one. Otherwise, the human empire would have been renamed the Zhuojing Empire. How could Zhuojing be allowed to hide around like he is now and even kill important people?" Bai Quan nodded and agreed with Chen Ming's idea. "So An Wuping and I plan to use our combined skills to disguise ourselves as Zhuojing and do things in the name of Zhuojing. It reminds the Empire that the left path has not completely died out. They are just like before, and there are more of them. Then we can alert the left paths that are still hidden in the dark. Maybe those left paths will come directly to us." Bai Quan said, "The forces that are hiding in secret and accumulating strength are disguised and exposed on the surface. It is indeed possible to go directly to the person who is pretending. But what about the specifics? Just rely on you to disguise yourself as Zhuojing and attack the Machine Clan." "Of course not." Chen Ming immediately denied. "We will make new moves in the future. My fleet will fight with the Black Mist Zerg fleet, and then it will appear that I and these Black Mist Zerg are at odds. When the time comes, I need you to cooperate with me a little. Just send some ships out to show your attitude. Then I will ask An Wuping to send some Black Mist Zergs to the Empire and try to cause some losses that will not have such a big impact. At least it cannot be just a small fight outside the Empire. At least to the extent that the Empire will pay attention to the left path again. As long as we raise the news about Zhuojing again, someone will do the rest, whether it's the Anti-Cult Bureau or Zhuojing himself." Understood. Bai Quan finally understood the reason behind Chen Ming's initiative to expose the Zerg clan and the Black Mist Zerg clan. As long as these ideas can be completed, it is indeed, as Chen Ming said, something that is beneficial to everyone. And Chen Ming's concern about concealment is indeed justified. If there is someone in the upper echelons of the Empire who has an affair with Zhuojing, then this plan is a pure waste of resources. It was not only a waste of Chen Ming and An Wuping's, but also a waste of the Empire's resources. Therefore, he only found An Wuping, a person who had a deep hatred for Zhuojing, to cooperate with him to complete all of this. That makes sense. Bai Quan is not an unreasonable person, and he is willing to do the necessary evil. Whether it was experiments on Black Mist psychics who were leftist elements, or he was helping Chen Ming hide some specific information from others. Then let's talk about something serious. There are many people behind Bai Quan and other places who want to learn more about Chen Ming and An Wuping through his mouth, instead of going to investigate in person to avoid offending Chen Ming. What Bai Quan just asked was what he wanted to know. What he said next was what others wanted to know. Bai Quan cleared his throat and returned the topic to a time when he didn't know a lot of more detailed information. Last time you gave me a photo saying that an unknown Zerg occupied a planet, but Whooping told many things about it. Accounted for it, including your contact and cooperation with him. Chen Ming said calmly. Oh, what are you doing? You don't have anything to say? No, it was originally planned like this, and it's not normal for the bullshit to be discovered. Look, no one dares to come to me to question it, right? Bai Quan held his forehead and said, but the superiors are still worried about what you will do to Whooping, so they just told me to ask about the relationship between you and Whooping. If there is anything the Empire can do, help Whooping carry it. It means I suspect that you are threatening Whooping, asking you to let go, and the Empire will compensate you. What? What can I do? How can serious cooperation be called a threat? Stop for a moment. Bai Quan felt that Chen Ming was talking nonsense again, so he asked in the way of private communication between the two. How do you and Whooping cooperate? How did he agree to cooperate with you? Oh, it's his insect queen here. Bai Quan was silent for a moment and said nothing more. After discussing with Chen Ming, he needed to tell the public about the news, and he needed to hide the news for Chen Ming. After asking these questions, he asked Chen Ming an irrelevant question. Do you have any thoughts on the situation on the front line? The front line of the mechanical tribe is almost completely undefended. Obviously, we have only sent out a few probing troops and have already almost made a concave shape in the defense line of the mechanical tribe star field. To be honest, I feel more and more that it's a trap for the machine race, but I have no clue. Forehead. Chen Ming really wanted to say that this was not actually a trap. It was his movements behind the mechanical tribe that attracted the main force of the mechanical tribe to their rear. But it was really hard for him to tell the news directly. After all, these are what he really wants to hide, another part of his hidden strength. Therefore, Chen Ming chose to guide the situation of the mechanical clan in other directions, such as the phase beast. It just so happened that Chen Ming had actually come into contact with giant beasts many times. He used this excuse to argue that the machine clan had no good means of dealing with the phase beasts, and was forced to tell him about the situation of stuffing cruisers and battleships into the phase space in order to drive away the phase beasts. He spent some time explaining to Bai Quan the techniques for temporarily sending ordinary battleships into phase space. Then, the mothership suspected of carrying the destroyer appeared in the area where the black mist Zerg appeared, throwing a blame on Whooping's head. Then he talked about the possibility that the reinforcements from outside the machine tribe were still hidden somewhere, and helped Bai Quan confirm that there might indeed be traps set. Chen Ming used this information to make Bai Quan and others ignore the losses of the mechanical clan caused by Chen Ming's power. Chen Ming didn't know how much Bai Quan believed, but everything he said was true. He just deliberately concealed some information. It's not that Chen Ming didn't trust Bai Quan, but there were some news that really couldn't be told to others. After talking with Bai Quan, Whooping's phone call happened to come in. Then Chen Ming immediately prepared to ask and answer his own questions. Answered Whooping's call. Chen Ming immediately asked, "What's wrong?" Whooping's voice sounded from the terminal. "Did you see the black fog?" "I saw it. It shouldn't be you who made it." "Yes, it's something else that is forcibly controlling my bugs. So I think." Whooping was interrupted by Minister Lu Han on the other end of the terminal in the hand of Minister Ho on his side, just halfway through his words. "Director Chen Ming, can I talk to you?" Question mark. A question mark suddenly appeared above Chen Ming's head. "No, you didn't have this attitude just now. Why is it that when he was talking to Whooping, his tone was so commanding, but when he came to him, his attitude suddenly became better? He had the attitude of asking for help. What does it mean? He is a minister of the national level after all. Why is there such a big difference between before and after? Is he afraid of his psychic power? But if you really want to say it, Chen Ming is only level 5, and Whooping is already level 6, as he said himself. Or is it because Whooping can't find him even at level 6, and although Chen Ming is only level 5, his psychic threat is obviously greater? It's really prescribing the right medicine for the right disease, and it's easier to bully if you have a good attitude? Chen Ming thought of the past again in an instant. He has always maintained a humble attitude, But as soon as he arrived at the headquarters, someone gave him a surprise, forcing him to act violently directly. The whole empire laughed at the Legion, and the Legion commander had to go out in person to solve the problem. Since then until today, at least in the Legion and the Empire, everyone who knows him has smiled at him. Just now, when he talked with Baikwan last time, he would say that no one dared to ask him questions. As a result, Chen Ming enjoyed the treatment he had once before, but he enjoyed it again from Manhwa. It was really a case of good people being bullied. Minister Ho, who was standing by, saw that Manhwa's expression was getting more and more wrong because of his superior's words, and cold sweat ran down his heart. He and Manhwa had met and known each other for a few times, and they tried to slow down their tone and communicate well, and Manhwa also cooperated. As a result, the boss's attitude made it like this in a short while. Even if he wanted to use the difference in attitude to affect the relationship between Chen Ming and Manhwa, it would not ruin his relationship with Manhwa. But he had no choice. He was really not qualified to say more to his superior. Chen Ming took in Minister Ho's expression and did not let Manhwa directly show any performance that would destroy his character. At the same time, his legion's prosthesis responded on the terminal, "Who are you?" Lu Han introduced himself as before and mentioned his idea of asking Chen Ming to help transport supplies with psychic energy. By the way, he also asked Chen Ming to investigate the matter in depth and find out who was behind the black fog. At the same time, he also specifically explained the matter of the black fog psychic that Chen Ming had killed before. Of course, his attitude was on Chen Ming's side, and he expressed some people's suspicions in a very tactful way, hoping to help Chen Ming prove his innocence. It's just that the Empire's fleet takes a lot of time to travel, so he can only ask Chen Ming to investigate it himself first. After learning about the situation of the black fog, the Empire has already suspected the black fog psychic and Zhuijing. This is a good thing for Chen Ming, but Minister Lu's attitude made him completely unhappy. It also gave him no reason to get angry, so he just exchanged information normally, and then talked about some things he had explained to Baikwan. Then the communication ended. But Manhwa was different. He took a last look at Minister Ho and the terminal on the table in front of him, and left with a dark face. Minister Ho's face also darkened after Manhwa left, but he still maintained a normal tone when he spoke. "Minister Lu, Manhwa is gone. It's okay. He is a psychic who can be easily controlled by Chen Ming, and another psychic has taken away so many Zerg warships. His ability should be just like that. Don't worry too much about him. Just do your work as before. Then I will send other psychics to investigate that area." Lu Han seemed to realize the difference in his attitude when communicating with Chen Ming and Manhwa, but he had no intention of changing. People in high positions don't care too much about what the people below think. As for the specific definition of the people below, there are different opinions. Minister Ho silently accepted the orders from his superiors, and he would not do anything else. Time flew to the next day. Chen Ming had basically arranged the affairs of Manhwa and the Zerg. At the same time, through Baikwan, he also learned that most of the people in the Empire who knew about it suspected that the ugly black fog prosthesis in the Black Fog Zerg incident was made by Zhuijing. Although this creature that is a mixture of humans, machines, and Zerg really looks like something that Chen Ming and Manhwa created together, it is also something that they took the initiative to expose. Manhwa and Chen Ming had no reason to take the initiative to tell the Empire about such a thing. And Chen Ming's statement that black mist psychics will die without a complete corpse is supported by Baikwan. In addition, Zhuijing also has a history of human experiments. It's not impossible to make mechanical devices, and it's even easier for Zhuijing to get the black mist heart spirit pearl. And there is another point that is not too critical, but it also affects many people's judgment. That is, Chen Ming has been making all kinds of high-tech machinery, and the biological spacecraft made by Manhwa is also extremely biologically beautiful. It is completely different from the ugly black mist prosthesis. So after thinking about the difference between what Chen Ming and Manhwa made and the black mist prosthesis, although many people will not regard this situation as the main basis for judgment, they will subconsciously regard this situation as an important auxiliary basis for judgment. Therefore, the situation in the Empire is developing in the direction that Chen Ming wants to see. No one will interfere with what he will do in the rear of the mechanical race later. However, Chen Ming is not in a hurry to act so quickly, and the development of the Zerg still needs time. And he has another thing to deal with. That is the matter of the phase behemoth. Chen Ming could only communicate very simply with the phase beast, and could not share his detailed ideas for the phase beast to understand. If the phase beast ran away again like last time when they met next time, Chen Ming was really worried whether it could come back alive. So it had to find a way to solve the problem of communication. Chen Ming had started thinking about it since the phase beast left. The first solution he thought of was to let the Queen of Worms absorb the 3 scales that the phase beast had left for him last time. After thinking about it, he decided not to do it for the time being, because he felt that if the Queen of Worms absorbed the scales of the phase beast, it would most likely enter the evolutionary state again. It was not a good thing for the Queen of Worms to suddenly evolve at this point in time. So Chen Ming thought about it for a long time and thought of many ways to communicate. The final choice was to let the Queen of Worms come up with the way to communicate with Chen Ming before it absorbed Chen Ming's condensed spiritual energy source, the neural connection. Using a nerve derived from the body, try to communicate directly with the phase beast mentally. It's not too difficult, but the Queen of Worms has to make this nerve thicker. Today, after some simple tests, the nerve used to communicate with the phase beast has been made by the Queen of Worms. And the time is almost up. The phase beast went out for a few hours before and came back. So now if the phase beast is still alive, it should be looking for his traces. And the way of finding is definitely related to Chen Ming's use of the power of the Scarlet Dimension. Therefore, Chen Ming's approach is to find a place outside the star field of the mechanical clan and use psychic energy to send a robot to the phase space of this place through the Scarlet Dimension. Then wait, just wait. After waiting for about half an hour, the transition fluctuations of the phase beast appeared in this galaxy, and Chen Ming really waited for the phase beast. And the phase beast that appeared in front of Chen Ming had many more scars on its body. This time, there were not only the terrible scars of being bitten by the same kind, but also some traces that seemed to be whipped violently by the tails of other phase beasts. The scales on these wounds were almost all broken, and some places were still slowly flowing with purple blood. The injuries were more serious than the last time. But the phase beast still came to Chen Ming's robot excitedly. It pushed a larger piece of scarlet flesh in its mouth to Chen Ming. Chen Ming did not touch the flesh, but used the Scarlet Dimension to send the nerve here again. The phase beast sensed that Chen Ming used part of the power of the Scarlet Dimension and suddenly seemed a little more excited. But after discovering that Chen Ming only used the power of the Scarlet Dimension for a moment, the excitement dissipated and continued to push the scarlet flesh towards Chen Ming. Chen Ming still did not touch the flesh, but let the robot drag the nerve that was connected to Chen Ming's mental power to try to get close to the phase beast, and at the same time made a friendly and soothing voice. But the phase beast seemed to not understand Chen Ming's idea of accessing the nerve, and it was somewhat resistant to Chen Ming bringing this tentacle-like thing close to it. It kept a distance from Chen Ming's robot, and kept signaling Chen Ming to touch the scarlet flesh. It went around in circles with Chen Ming. The robot could not catch up with the phase beast, no matter how much Chen Ming accelerated. The phase beast just wanted Chen Ming to absorb the scarlet flesh, but did not want to touch the nerve. Chen Ming had no choice but to return to the flesh temporarily and completely absorb the larger flesh when the phase beast approached. The phase beast immediately approached and observed Chen Ming carefully, while still avoiding the nerves on the robot's hand. After observing for a long time, it suddenly seemed a little disappointed and took off again, as if it was going to continue to pick up Chen Ming to find the scarlet flesh. No matter how Chen Ming called it, it did not move at all, and its goal was very clear. Chen Ming was completely exhausted this time. He really couldn't just accept the unreasonable kindness of others, even if this other person was not a human, but a phase behemoth. It just so happened that he was not fighting with the mechanical race at the moment. So Chen Ming chose to build a cruiser directly next to the robot and followed the position where the phase behemoth jumped. If his calculations were correct, the location where the phase behemoth went should be somewhere inside the mechanical race star field. The jump was over soon. A new galaxy appeared in front of Chen Ming. There are mechanical space buildings everywhere in a galaxy, and every planet inside it has traces of mechanical development, and there are mechanical colonies in many places. But this galaxy is now in ruins. Everything in the galaxy, whether in space or on the planet, related to the mechanical race, has become a ruin. And if you take a quick look, you will find that these buildings have not been in ruins for a long time, at least not more than half a year. The mechanical race seems to have abandoned this place. Not only did no mechanical race come to clean up the ruins, but there were even no monitoring facilities for the galaxy that should have been there. It is hard to imagine that there would be such a place in the core area of the mechanical race star field. Chen Ming recorded the coordinates of this galaxy and immediately looked for the traces of the phase behemoth that had just jumped here. Soon he found that the phase behemoth was not far away, and the phase behemoth also noticed the spaceship that Chen Ming drove over. Then the phase beast was once again in confusion and bewilderment, as if it could not understand what was happening to Chen Ming in front of it, and how he suddenly changed from a robot to this. The phase beast seemed to think seriously for a while, and it was unknown what it thought of, and suddenly it chirped at Chen Ming again. Although the phase beast and Chen Ming's cruiser are now in the vacuum of the universe, the medium in the phase space has the ability to transmit sound in the phase space, allowing Chen Ming to hear the phase beast's voice clearly. And the sound it made at this time was different from when it communicated with Chen Ming before. It was full of warnings and concerns, and it was obvious that it wanted Chen Ming to leave. Of course, Chen Ming could not leave at will. He did not want to see the only phase beast he had contacted and was quite friendly do something dangerous. Continue to let the spacecraft approach, try to communicate with the phase beast, and let it contact the nerve for communication that Chen Ming asked the Queen to make. However, the phase beast was still very resistant to this. It flicked its two slender tails, turned its posture, and a purple light shone on its body. It called on the power of phase and entered the jump again, disappearing in front of Chen Ming. By investigating the jump traces, Chen Ming once again determined the destination of the phase beast's jump, which was still inside the star field of the mechanical race. He also started the jump engine and chased after it. However, this time, his spaceship had an accident when it was jumping. Before the spaceship landed, a phase force had already repelled him frantically at the end of the jump. A surging repulsive force was surging frantically, trying to squeeze Chen Ming's spaceship out and not give the spaceship a chance to jump to the destination. Even this repulsive force was acting on the spaceship while acting on Chen Ming's consciousness. Just like the last time the phase space and the scarlet dimension clashed in his consciousness space, it once again caused damage to Chen Ming's consciousness space. Just when Chen Ming thought that the coordinates where the phase beast was heading to were the territory of the phase beast alone, and other creatures were not allowed to enter. The blue light in his consciousness space suddenly lit up, protecting his consciousness space and reducing the impact he received to the minimum. This is not the phase space rejecting him, and the phase beast does not have such power. What is going on? As the jump progresses, Chen Ming feels that not only his consciousness and worship are being rejected by this force, but even the entire space is rejecting him and his worship. The phase space at the destination seems to be incompatible with the ordinary phase space. Only by thoroughly mastering the power of the phase can one try to accommodate this repulsive force and avoid being squeezed out. But Chen Ming can't do it now. He only has the mark of the phase power, and he himself does not have any of this power. And at the end of the jump, his robot and spaceship arrived at the destination. In a short time that Chen Ming could hardly react, the spaceship was squeezed out of the phase space by this force that he could no longer resist and returned to the normal universe. And then in the next moment, his robot and the cruiser on which the robot was riding were instantly destroyed by a huge force. The wreckage of the spacecraft was also annihilated by an unprecedentedly aggressive phase force, and it could not even be repaired. He completely lost the vision of that galaxy and lost the tracking of the phase beast. The last picture Chen Ming saw through the robot, and the spacecraft was only a shadow covering the sky. Chen Ming frowned and created a new cruiser in the area where his spacecraft had passed before. He made a jump again, and this time, Chen Ming didn't even have time to see clearly what happened before the spacecraft was destroyed. He couldn't observe any useful information at all, and the spacecraft's recording equipment didn't record anything valuable. He could only be sure that the spacecraft was destroyed by brute force, and then completely destroyed by a special and extremely special aggressive phase force. If he guessed correctly, this should be done by the same kind of phase beast. Should I try again? Chen Ming thought about it and gave up the idea. The power of that huge phase beast was so strong that he couldn't even resist it now. He felt that unless he took out the Zerg fleet to try again, there was no way to get in with the ships he controlled alone. If he tried to get in again, it might affect the original plan of the small phase beast that had already entered and communicated with him. It had snatched the scarlet meat from the hands of this phase beast that Chen Ming couldn't even resist twice, and it might be the same this time. It was the current situation that made him very curious about one thing. How did the small phase beast get in? Is it because the phase beast is born to control the power of phase? Chen Ming didn't understand. He could only wait and see. Wait for 2 days. If the small phase beast didn't come back, he would try again. Chen Ming recorded the coordinates of the place where the small phase beast went. At the same time, he also arranged several ships in the decadent mechanical star field to go there, preparing to investigate the cause of the decline of this galaxy. Chen Ming couldn't get to the place where the small phase beast went, but the place it went to last was not affected, so he could start from here. After the investigation, he would throw some insect eggs there. This place should also be the base for his work in the mechanical star field. Chen Ming's spaceship immediately began to investigate the planets one by one. Soon he confirmed that all the damaged mechanical buildings and all the mechanical colonies in the galaxy were destroyed by something with brute force. It can be basically confirmed that the entire galaxy was destroyed by the phase beast, and judging from the traces of the ruins, it should be the work of the huge phase beast. After scanning in space, Chen Ming let a spaceship land on a planet in a galaxy, preparing to land among the ruins. However, the spaceship had just landed and touched the ground, and before it could stop completely, the ground sank significantly, and pieces of ruins collapsed again, and smoke and dust covered a large area. Chen Ming immediately let the spaceship hover and looked at the ground under the spaceship. The underground structure of the ruins seemed extremely soft. Chen Ming asked the spaceship to scan it immediately with some confusion, and then he found a place that shocked him. That is, the underground of this ruin is not filled with damaged mechanical structures and rocks, but with dried flesh and blood tissue. All of them are the products of dimensional infection. When the spaceship directly scans from a distance in space, it cannot be observed. Only when it gets close can it find these distorted things hidden under the ruins. Chen Ming immediately asked all the spaceships in the galaxy to scan the nearest planet at close range. The result is the same. Traces of such dried flesh and blood tissue were also found on other planets. This is probably the original place where the mechanical race created the dimensional infection. It's just that Chen Ming doesn't understand how the dimensional infection grew on the territory of the mechanical race. If we say that the only existence that can provide flesh and blood for the scarlet dimension for proliferation is probably the phase behemoth. Could the scarlet dimensional infection that appeared in this mechanical race's galaxy be related to the phase behemoth? Phase space, phase behemoth, dimensional infection, and destroyers seem to be connected in this galaxy. But Chen Ming did not find anything else on all the planets in the entire galaxy except these dried flesh and blood, and there was no clue for further research. He could not make an accurate judgment now. He needed more information, and the information could only be obtained from the database of the phase beast or the mechanical family later. Now, he could not continue the investigation. 2 days passed in a blink of an eye. Baikuan had already gone to the front line of the Gallo Star field, and Chen Ming also returned to the front line with Baikuan, leaving only the robot at the headquarters. In the 2 days before leaving, Chen Ming arranged the follow-up of most of the things he needed to do at the headquarters. Make sure that after he left, the robot can continue to participate in the research of several new projects he will participate in later. And he also took advantage of these 2 days to arrange things in other places, such as the pioneering fleet that had been advancing for several days on the main body. Chen Ming's pioneering fleet itself stayed at the 3rd and 4th extreme distance jump positions. Because of the relationship with the mechanical family, It directly advanced 3 extreme distance jumps to the target galaxy originally set by Chen Ming and arrived at the distance of 7 extreme jumps. This decision now seems very wise, because when Chen Ming launched the Zerg fleet to attack the mechanic race, some monitoring facilities he left near the original location of the pioneering fleet discovered that the mechanic race's fleet had searched there just in vain. But if Chen Ming had not retreated, he believed that the mechanic race's destroyer would have been in his face at that time. At present, Chen Ming has also let the pioneering fleet find a new suitable planet for stationing and began to explore the surrounding star fields to find places for resource mining. At the same time, the application of new technologies has also begun. Of course, when we say technology, it actually means to let the Zerg race participate in the pioneering plan. The Zerg has a strong ability to mine resources, converting all visible objects into their own nutrition. Of course, they can also not transform, leaving those high-value minerals, and only maintain life by eating soil and rocks. Therefore, Chen Ming believes that the current Zerg is capable of undertaking large-scale material mining. All mineral resources can be mined by the Zerg. Although there are no large-scale industrial mining facilities, the efficiency of a large number of Zerg in large-scale resource development is not low, which is much better than Chen Ming's previous smaller-scale mining equipment left on different planets. In addition to the role of resource developers, the Zerg can also play another key auxiliary role in the development of the machine itself. That is, by allowing the Zerg to transform to the highest point, the Queen of the Zerg can master the manufacturing method of the biological exploration ship, so as to replace the role of the several highest points in Chen Ming's fleet, further speed up the efficiency of opening up hyperspace channels, and improve the overall development efficiency. Of course, Chen Ming does not need to be responsible for this matter. He only needs to tell Hui Huang about the Queen of the Zerg's ability, and then let Hui Huang arrange all the rest. Chen Ming himself is still doing more of his own things. In addition to the research project on the headquarters prosthesis, Chen Ming has never stopped the research project on the main body, including optimizing the guard Zerg and continuing to study the manufacturing plan of the semi-mechanical and semi-biological structure. At the same time, Chen Ming has been paying attention to the situation of Sample Zero. Sample Zero is still alive and getting better and better. The consciousness of the Zerg unit in Sample Zero is just a very standard and ordinary Zerg unit consciousness. But as it has undergone transformation in the body of Sample Zero, and has also experienced subsequent struggles with its own imperfect semi-mechanized structure relying on its body, it can be seen that it is completely merging with its body, and its own consciousness strength is also increasing in this process. It is already different from any other Zerg. Even Chen Ming found that the IQ of Sample Zero is getting higher and higher, and it can already recognize some simple texts. And it is also trying to imitate the voice of Chen Ming, who often observes it by actively evolving complex vocal organs. It is not known whether it has evolved such an ability by itself, or it is the credit of its semi-mechanized structure. In short, its existence has obvious value. Chen Ming planned to keep it for a while longer to see if there would be any new changes in the future. And at noon the day before Chen Ming was to leave with Bai Quan, Chen Ming also received a call from Bian Gaoxian, the head of the Fanchao Research Institute, where Chen Ming had used a robot to participate in the phase space and scarlet dimension interaction experiment, and he also received a gift by mail. There was an invitation letter outside the gift box, inviting Chen Ming to visit the Fanchao Research Institute. Chen Ming was quite interested, to be honest, but he couldn't do it recently. He told Bian Gaoxian about the reasons on the front line on the phone and received a reply from Bian Gaoxian that he was welcome at any time. Then Chen Ming opened the gift box sent by Bian Gaoxian. There were 2 things in it. One was a storage device, which stored the blueprints of various weapons and spacecraft under test. Bian Gaoxian left a message in it saying that these were some scientific research blueprints that their institute had approved and allowed to be shared with similar people who were friendly with the Fanchao Research Institute. And the other thing, it was a spirit stone with the nature of eating spirits. Although this spiritual stone is only the size of the tip of the little finger in normal state, which makes its strength very low, this thing is very special. According to Chen Ming, There are many different types of spiritual stones with different properties. Some belong to human characteristics, and some belong to human-related properties, and some are related to spirit. Such spiritual stones are definitely not bad, even if they are small. Although its strength is indeed not enough for Chen Ming now, it also has its own functionality. It can give Chen Ming's psychic fluctuations a special property. As long as it comes into contact with psychic-related matters, it will actively devour some external psychic fluctuations to nourish itself and provide additional mental recovery and endurance. As for the negative effect, it is a hobby for high-concentration psychic fluctuation environments. Chen Ming's body stays in a high-concentration psychic fluctuation environment every day, and the negative effect is equal to no. Although the positive effect does not seem to be very obvious, it will definitely give him some unexpected refinement in battle. The things given by others to repay the life-saving grace determine how precious their lives are in their own eyes. Bian Gaoxian was just a researcher with some experience in the Fanchao Research Institute, and he was still an ordinary person. These were the most valuable things he could find. After the headquarters had dealt with all these things, the warship that Chen Ming and Bai Quan were riding on at this time, as well as the fleet where the warship was located, also arrived at the Gallo Star field through the Stargate. Chen Ming did not go directly to the branch with Bai Quan. Although going to the branch can first understand the movements of the mechanical race on the side of the Empire, Chen Ming still chose to return to the pirate space station not far from the branch. The boss who had been busy outside for a while had returned here a few days ago, and Chen Ming had to go and see him. When Chen Ming returned to the hardware store in the number 1 industrial space arm again, he saw that the boss was still sitting behind the counter as before. But the previous boss used to wear sandals and short sleeves and looked like he was doing nothing, lying flat. But the current boss has changed his dressing style. Although he is still wearing casual clothes, he seems to be more energetic and has a goal. After Chen Ming walked into the hardware store, the boss looked Chen Ming up and down, without any sense of unfamiliarity after not seeing him for a long time, and asked casually, "Is this true or false?" "Fake. It looks real." Chen Ming casually pulled a chair from the side and chatted. "Boss, what have you been doing recently? The matter of Kamo Star Domain should have ended long ago, and you didn't even come to the engagement party. I also wanted to come back early, but the president stopped me and asked me to help study the mental state of the entity infected by some dimension. And didn't I record my face on video at the engagement party? You have been very active recently. I have heard a lot about you outside. Tell me." Chen Ming nodded. He could hide his purpose, plan, preparation, and arrangement from anyone else, but there was no need for the boss. The boss was his guide on the path of psychic power and his mentor who helped him achieve today's results. There was no need to hide it from the boss. "I have indeed done a lot of things recently. I used Whooping's fake identity to cooperate with the Zerg to attract the attention of the Empire and the Mechanical Clan to the border of the Mechanical Clan star field, and then used the Zerg to attack the Mechanical Clan's logistics galaxy at the same time." The boss seemed to be a little excited beyond Chen Ming's expectations when listening to Chen Ming's story and motioned Chen Ming to continue to talk in detail. Chen Ming did not hide it either. He told the boss in detail about the movements of the Mechanical Clan, his thoughts on the Mechanical Clan's mothership and Stargate, the source of the Zerg's ability, the situation of entering the Scarlet Dimension again, and the matter of the phase behemoth. Just as the boss was very satisfied with Chen Ming's experience during this period, Chen Ming suddenly realized something. The boss's ability is related to consciousness and mind. So can the boss contact the phase behemoth? Chen Ming asked immediately. The boss was quite interested in this and asked, "How can I contact the phase beast here? My psychic power can now directly teleport people." "By what means?" "The Scarlet Dimension." Chen Ming left the boss's hardware store shortly afterwards. He boarded a spaceship to go to the branch. On the way, he received a message from Cheng Xinghai. He learned that Cheng Xinghai had finished the training camp and would go to Gallo after 2 days of rest. Cheng Xinghai's training camp was over, which meant that the backbone of the Empire was ready to go to the front line. Before, the Empire's troops to deal with the mechanical race were all vanguards used for trial. Now they have to use serious military forces. But even though they only used vanguards, The Empire's war against the mechanical race was still victorious all the way. Even Chen Ming, who knew the overall situation of the war and the situation behind it, found it difficult not to doubt what preparations the mechanical race was making. The mechanical race could not wait to die. Even if the logistics were beaten and collapsed by him before, the mechanical race would at least find a way to fight the Empire desperately. It is impossible that there would be no movement. He felt that he really had to wait for the Zerg to develop again, and then send a ship to each star system of the mechanical clan for reconnaissance. Chen Ming had just been thinking about it, and there were a lot of messages from Cheng Xinghai in the terminal in his hand, telling Chen Ming about the pain of the training. Chen Ming comforted her while continuing to think about the war. Not long after, Chen Ming arrived at the star system where the branch was located. There have been huge changes here compared to the last time he left. The branch is no longer limited to a volcanic planet. All the planets in the star system have traces of development and have a foundation for construction. Chen Ming's spacecraft landed on the only volcanic planet in the star system, which is the headquarters of the branch. He was immediately taken to the headquarters. On the way, Chen Ming saw that everyone was in a hurry, and their faces were tense, as if something had happened. Speaking of which, he suddenly remembered that he saw a large number of fleets coming in and out outside before landing. He thought it was normal, but now it seems not. As for what happened specifically, he should know it soon. Chen Ming was soon taken to the command center in the newly built headquarters building. There were many people in the command center, and dozens of light screens were flashing on different devices. Xiao Bowen, who had not been seen for a while, was sitting in the main seat of the command center, and Bai Quan was sitting in his deputy's seat. Seeing Chen Ming come in, Bai Quan greeted Xiao Bowen and greeted Chen Ming. What happened? The mechanical race finally took action. They raided a planet on our border.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.